Believe me, you are gonna go broke showing turkeys like these.
It's turkey time. Gobble, gobble.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Let's Talk Turkeys. I'm your host, Movie Miss, and this week I am being joined by my co-host, Drive-In Dave. Hello, sir. How are you doing?
Not too bad. I'm super excited for today.
So this was your pick. We're doing Darkman 1990.
They destroyed everything he had, all that he loved, everything that he was now. Crime has a new enemy, and justice has a brand new face.
I was afraid that you wouldn't want me anymore.
Of course I still want you.
The good news is that I know who's behind our little troubles of late. Finish it.
He has the power to look like any man.
These two are both sons of witches!
But he is unlike any man.
He's a cockroach. You think you kill him, and he pops up someplace else.
In the darkest hour,
Julie, who's the real monster here?
there's a light that shines on every human being but one. From director Sam Raimi, Darkman.
It is a turkey, a Rotten Tomato critic score of 84%. They loved it, but an audience of only 59. This was my first time viewing. I have never seen this movie. I did know the premise, and I did know it was Liam Neeson, but I just never bothered to watch it. You, however, like this movie a lot and recommended we do it. Let's talk about that for a minute. Let's talk about first time you saw this, your relationship to this movie, why you like it so much.
I don't recall if I saw it in theaters or not, or if it was like one of those ones I just picked up at my local video store.
Well, in 1990, what were you going to the movies?
Yeah, because like we said in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I went to the theater to see Turtles.
That's right.
And I remember seeing Tim Burton's Batman in the theaters. So like, I was going. I don't recall if this one was one that I went to because it's rated R. So and my parents were very lax at watching rated R movies. I mean, like literally, I tell this story all the time. My dad let me watch Predator 2 with him, and the only time he kicked me out of the room was during the sex scene. He's like, "Oh, go in the kitchen for a minute." The moment Predator comes in and starts ripping the people apart, he's like, "Get in here, get in here." So it's like gore, fine. They're cool with watching people die.
Parenting done right.
Exactly. I mean, it's like sex. No, you can't see sex, but you want to see someone die. Come on in here, kid. Let's watch.
Exactly.
So it's like I don't remember if I got to see it in the theaters, but I just remember me watching it, and everything about this movie was just cool to me. I love the design of the character, the acting at the time. I enjoyed the action, the story, everything about it was just awesome to me. Now I can see the flaws in the movie. But yeah, there are flaws to it, but it's still a fun movie for me because it brings back my childhood and superhero stuff. I mean, this is total superhero movie.
And I never want to take that away from you or my husband who likes this movie or anybody else who likes this movie. My hot takes, my, making fun of it and ripping it apart. You got to remember, I'm 50 years old and I'm looking at it through the 2023 lens. I've never seen it. So of course I'm going to be harsh. I'm not going to be as forgiving. And also that's the point of the show.
And it's fine. I mean, even the movies I enjoy, I can still pick apart. I mean, there's always going to be bad aspects to anything that's even good. I mean, even, people praise the Marvel movies and stuff like that. And there's many things I can pick apart in that. It's just like, no, you guys maybe should not have done that. Maybe you should have acted a little bit better,
So you mentioned this is a superhero movie for you. And, Sam Raimi went on to do what, Spider-Man, one of them? Or two?
He did 3 Spider-Mans. All the Tobey Maguire Spider-Mans were him. He's a huge comic book fan. He did Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness. And apparently doing the research, because there's a lot of stuff I did not know about this movie. So like learning a lot of the behind the scenes stuff was fascinating. He wanted to do a Shadow movie. And anyone who's not familiar with the old pulps and stuff like that, the Shadow was basically one of the inspirations for Batman, which is another thing he wanted to do. Thank God he didn't do it.
The Shadow happened in 94, and that was with Alec Baldwin, correct?
Yes, they did do a
Okay.
Shadow movie. I would love to eventually get to that one too, because I love that, and that is a terrible movie.
Also
It is,
never seen that one.
it is bad, but in a fun way. I mean, there's been two pulp movies that I know of that exist, and that is The Shadow, and well, okay, I guess technically not a pulp, but pulp-ish, The Phantom.
I was just going to
So,
say The Phantom with Billy Zane. Doesn't
yeah,
that
but I guess
count?
it's technically more of a comic strip because it's a huge comic strip.
Would The Rocketeer count too?
The Rocketeer is actually a comic book. And that's
Oh,
another one
okay.
I would love to get to because I love The Rocketeer and everyone hates that movie. And I don't know why, because it is such a fun movie. I kind of feel like Darkman is kind of in that vein, the same as those
Okay.
things. It kind of has that feel. And then learning about the behind the scenes stuff, there's apparently a connection to like the Universal horror genre a little bit. And when I saw that going back and rewatching, it's like, yeah, I can see that. There's like a little bit of Invisible Man, Phantom of the Opera. So
100%.
yeah, and it's just so, especially the melodramatic performances at times.
And the Danny Elfman score, coupled with so he has a coat, but like cloak-ish vibe in a lot of the shots and the way it's directed. I got full-on Batman vibes.
Yeah, and then it's. I mean, Raimi wanted to do a Batman film. I
Yeah,
don't think
that
his directing
tracks.
style would work. And it's a little weird. He kind of reminds me of Tim Burton. He's just got that style. It doesn't always fit with everything. And Raimi, I don't think would fit in the Batman universe.
So we'll get to a couple of the points. I'll even put a picture on socials later when I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Sam Raimi with the Army of Darkness, you can see some similarities between this and that as well with his directing style and special effects and stuff. Like, for example, when this movie opens, the whole montage of things that we see, the barrage, it reminded me of Army of Darkness.
Oh yeah, no, I believe this was his first big studio film.
Correct.
You could kind of see that he hadn't adapted to the big studio like the way that they want things done. Because like when he gets into Spider-Man and everything, it's like he still has that style, but he pulls back a little bit on what he's like directing style is, like the weirdness that he likes to throw into things. Yeah, it's like this definitely feels like Army of Darkness, Evil Dead a little bit.
So directed by Sam, but also written by Sam Raimi, Chuck Farr and Ivan Raimi, who is his brother, I believe, right?
Yeah, I did not know he had two brothers.
You knew about Ted.
You know, everyone knows about Ted. Anyone who is a Sam Raimi fan knows about Ted because it's like Ron Howard and his brother. It's like, oh, Ted's always going to show up in something.
Right. But I will say, I do love me some Ted. When he shows up and stuff, whether it's a Sam Raimi project or not, he's so fun to me.
He is. And I mean, he's he's an adorable looking guy. He just has this childlike face and innocence. And you just like, you kind of like, if he ever like does a scene where he's crying, you just want to go over and give him like a, cotton candy and hug him and be like, oh.
So this movie was sort of doomed from the start in the sense that Raimi, like you said, wanted that dark superhero-y, universally big impact kind of film. So he wrote a short story and submitted it to Universal. And then it was only about 30 pages. So they brought in some extra people to help him punch it up. 12 drafts later, we get the shooting script for Darkman. So that's a bit of a problem. I think before you even start.
Yeah, I mean that kind of tracks because it feels like when you watch the film, there's a lot of parts in it that just feel like it fits in that classic 90s, like in between the 90s and the 80s, where it's like, okay, this movie is not going to hold up to time.
My biggest issue with this movie, I had a lot of issues, and when we get to the plot walkthrough, obviously I'll point them all out to you. But my biggest number one issue is the fact that the script does not allow us, the viewer, to figure things out. There's not time to follow what we want to be interesting characters, but they're not really. And the fact that Peyton, Darkman himself, is constantly saying things with his face covered, so it's whispering or voiceover all the time to us. He's breaking the fourth wall. He's or not breaking the fourth wall, but he's just saying things out loud. He's just saying his thoughts, because otherwise we wouldn't know what's happening if he doesn't say things out loud like, oh man, I gotta find that shoe. If he didn't say it, we wouldn't know what he's doing. And that is a huge problem for me in a movie. I'm bored to tears if I have to just listen to you stand there and look at your face, which doesn't emote because you're bandaged up and you're voiceovering all your thoughts. To me, that's lazy writing.
It is. This is where it fails as a movie, but this is also where it succeeds as a comic book movie, because this literally feels like the comic book author Peter David said this is like one of the perfect comic book movies. And people kind of interpret it as to like how, like, what do you mean by that? And I think what it is it's because this feels like a comic book. Like every scene feels like a panel. The dialogue feels like it coming right off the page, like how you said, the way he's saying things. It's because in comic books, you've always got either the thought balloons, like in the 80s, the 70s, 60s, you have the thought balloons for the character to find out what they're feeling and how they're thinking. Nowadays, you just get the little caption box in the corners. And I feel like that's kind of Raimi's version of doing that on screen.
I feel like it doesn't translate though to screen.
No, it doesn't. It's one of those things that you cannot. It's like in novels, like difference between a novel and a comic book is like in a novel, you can literally get into the character's head and their emotions and how they feel, and you can get more in depth. Comic book, you can't do that. And this is one of the reasons why comic books cannot literally translate from page to screen. You have to change stuff or it will not work.
So Universal gave him a budget of 14 million and it did a box office of 48.8. It was shot mostly in LA with a little bit in Canada. Okay, so Liam Neeson spent 18 hours at a time when it was the heaviest for makeup and prosthetics, and he had a 10-piece setup on his face, false teeth, the whole shebang. I feel like there's about 2 scenes, and one of them I have a beef with, and we'll talk about later, but I'll post it on socials so you can see. They did a great job in 2 of the scenes where he's pretty much in full exposed and he's close to the camera. Looks great. Not going to take that away from them.
The visual effects I thought did really good because it has a horror vibe to it. Like when you see the scarred face and everything, it looks gruesome like it's supposed to look, which is hilarious because to me, I like him so much when he's bandaged up because it's like then it has the superhero look and reminds me of like, cross between the Mummy or the Invisible Man. I love that look with the hat and the
I kind of got the Fly vibes a little bit too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The Fly. I mean, there's so many homages to like classic horror films and stuff. And you can kind of feel that watching this movie.
So my last note before we jump into the cast is a post-production note that I found. And it sounds like it's right. I don't know, but it sounds like it is. Raimi ran into conflicts with the studio during post-production after he'd filmed. He had a problem with the editor that the studio assigned to him. 8 weeks into assembling his first rough cut, the guy was not following Raimi's storyboards for editing, and he had a nervous breakdown and left, and they had to replace him.
Yeah, I read that too. I didn't read the detail that you did on how much, because I was curious of like what caused the nervous breakdown.
I wish I knew.
That is hilarious because I'm like, okay, like, is it just that bad of a movie? Was it that gruesome? Was it just Raimi was that slave driving, like cracking the whip and the guy just couldn't deal with it? I can picture that happening of the guy just ripping his hair out.
I just can't take this Darkman shit. So apparently, yeah, they got it together. They got somebody else in. Early preview screenings of the film did not go well. People were laughing in the wrong places and complaining about the lack of a happy ending. So Universal told Raimi, some people even rated Darkman the worst film they had ever seen. Same, test audience, same. I hate this movie.
I was just about to ask, so were you part of the test audience?
This movie would not have gotten made had they asked me my opinion, but nobody asks me.
Oh, thank you, because I love this movie so much that I'm glad it got made.
Well, what's funny is my husband hasn't seen it in probably over 20 years. And when I told him we were covering it for the show, he was like, oh, I love that movie. And I'm like, do you though? Because if you rewatch it now, I think your opinion might change a little. And so I told him, yeah, I don't ever want to watch this again, but I'll sit down and watch it with you because I'm dying to see his reaction to it now.
I'm curious. So did he actually watch it with you, or are you going to go back and watch it again later?
Not yet. We are going to watch it. Well, a little peek behind the curtain here for the listeners. When I watch a movie for the first time and have to take notes, it sort of taints my opinion because I can't just sit back and enjoy the movie and like just watch it for what it is. I literally have to pick it apart for the show for notes. So maybe my opinion would have been different had I not had to pause it every 3 seconds and take notes. Also, when I do a movie for the show, it takes me 4 to 5 hours to watch an hour and a half movie because I have to pause it every scene to take my notes and write my thoughts and comments. So this is not a quick, easy thing for me on my side to watch a movie for the show. So I was not going to ask him to sit with me because it's 5 hours to watch an hour and a half movie. And it's not pleasurable if I'm pausing it every 3 seconds.
Okay, see that explains it. Because with me, I don't pause. I just watch the movie, take the note that pops in my head, and the rest of this shit is just ad-libbed as we're going.
Well, maybe one of these days I'll flip the script on you like I did one time with Nikki Flicks and let you take the reins. Because yeah, writing the plot walkthrough, it's a process, man. It's hours.
Yeah, that would probably ruin any movie for me too.
So top billed cast for Darkman is Liam Neeson, Frances McDormand. I was shocked that was her, Larry Drake, and Colin Friels. And then we can get to everybody else as we go.
I do want to point out before we get into it, because this is one of the things I found that was fascinating. Liam Neeson was not considered like the top guy at the time. There were some other people that were considered. Raimi obviously wanted Bruce Campbell. Gary Oldman was also considered for the role.
No shit.
Yes. And the most interesting thing, the guy who was going for it, Bill Paxton. Paxton told Neeson about the role. Neeson went for the role, got it, and that ended the relationship for several years.
Oh my God. I'm actually glad because I adore Bill Paxton. I love him in everything he's ever been in, RIP. But I do not see him as Darkman.
I don't see anybody playing Darkman other than Neeson because of the melodramatic performance that comes into this movie. Like, Neeson nails that. I literally do not feel he took this role seriously. Maybe in the beginning he took it seriously, like, like, oh, okay, checked it out. And then like probably during the filming process was like, no, I think I got to kind of up the dramatics on this. Neeson's a good actor. I mean, we everyone knows how good this man is. And you watch this movie, you're probably thinking this is either his first acting role or he knows this is not going to be a classic movie.
Well, this was his first leading role. He'd done stuff prior. The thing about Neeson, he's got a very, I'm not taking anything away from him. I'm not dogging on him, but he's got a very pronounced nose. He's very recognizable. His teeth are very specific to him. There are things about him that are very recognizable Neeson features, and it does not lend to this movie. And we will get to it. All right, IMDb plot. A brilliant scientist left for dead returns to exact revenge on the people who burned him alive. That is very comic book to me.
It is. That literally sounds like the pitch for like a comic book.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into this plot walkthrough. Oh, you mentioned Bruce Campbell. He does pop up for a second at the end of the movie. And I love that in the credits, he's credited as Final Shemp.
I feel like those two have this working relationship where they just have fun, like picking on each other.
That's their thing that they had ever since they started making film is they call, because I read the Bruce Campbell, his first book that he wrote, and he talks about, they had that joke where anybody who needed somebody to jump in and be a stand-in or do a scene real quick or whatever, and they would call them a Shemp. Who's going to be the Shemp? And they had that running joke in their circle. And so, yeah, they credit him as Final Shemp. I was laughing. All right. So the movie begins with ominous music, and you can immediately tell it's Danny Elfman if you watch movies at all.
Oh, yeah. Like before it started, like when you watched it, did you love the opening homage Universal where like Universal logos from past and like all that stuff kind of?
Yes.
That's like my favorite Universal opening of all time when they go through the history of it. I just like when I saw that, I was like the nostalgia kicked in and I just freaking loved it. I wish they would bring that back.
I appreciated that. So we get studio credits, and then we see an aerial shot of a port shipyard in LA with crates and etc. We see a villainous looking criminal waiting in a warehouse with his crew. And we know he's villainous because he's on the phone pacing and cursing at somebody, barking orders.
Oh, typical 90s gangster. I felt it was like the look, everything about him just looked like 90s gangster.
Totally. So this bad guy, they call him Eddie. And the actor, though, I was like, oh my God, who is this? Jesse Lawrence Ferguson. He was in Prince of Darkness, John Carpenter's in 87.
Oh, that's where he was from. Okay, yeah, because there's quite a few people that show up in this movie that they have very recognizable faces, and I was like, okay, where do I know you from? And I can never place him. That explains it.
Yep. So that's Eddie, the bad guy. He's got some guys there, like just, they're doing shady business and whatnot. Probably got their goods from street ninjas, I'm guessing.
I was just gonna say, like I wonder if this is like this is the West Coast Foot Clan we got going on here.
Then we see the character Robert Durant, and that's Larry Drake. We don't know his name yet, but this is who he is. Rolls up in 2 cars full of men, and they get searched for weapons. And I had Oscar flashbacks to the movie Oscar when he pats down Chaz Palminteri and he pulls out a billy club, brass knuckles, a gun, poison, like all this random shit. This is what it felt like because Raimi cuts to a shot of the ground at their feet and you just see guns, brass knuckles, and all this shit just falling to the ground as they're getting frisked.
It felt so cheesy. It did. And it's like, I feel like he's very good at playing up the camp. Like he knows these movies are not going to be like serious films. So you got to play up the camp a little bit. He does that so well.
Yeah, I have to admit, going in, because like I said, never seen it. I'm giggling at this and I'm going, okay, is this what this is going to be? Is this going to be campy fun? Like, all right, I'm here for it. So they all go inside and Eddie, the head bad guy, he notices that a man in Durant's crew has a wooden leg and like jokes with him about it. And if you look at the crew, you can tell the guy's got the wooden leg. Another guy has a glorious mullet. So they're standing there and Durant says he's not selling his property to Eddie. Nope, you don't get to have it. And I will not be pressured by you. If you don't like it, something about I'll cut your balls off or something. And I was cracking up and I'm like, okay, here we go. The bad guys head to head. Durant gives a signal and one of his guys looking like Spicoli from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Did he not with this beautiful blonde mane?
He did. They look like the bad guys you see in every 90s TV show and movie. The ponytails, the mullets, the long hair.
Die Hard vibes from this guy.
Oh, definitely.
So apparently the wooden leg has been fashioned into a machine gun because Spicoli grabs it from the guy, the wooden leg, right off of him and starts blasting everybody. But then we see that Eddie's crew has the higher ground. There's a bunch of them and they all have guns. So they machine like bam, 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 rapid fire. They all start shooting at each other. Eddie says something like duck. And I got like Masters of the Universe flashbacks. I was cracking up. 2 small cars come busting out of crates sitting off to the side that were sealed. The windows down. There's 2 men, one driving, one hanging out the window with machine guns. And they come out of the crate already blasting, like ready to blow people away. I paused it and I almost peed myself. I was laughing so hard at the ridiculousness of this. And I thought, yes, movie, I'm here for you.
How did this, you're like sitting here wondering, one, how does this get past customs? How are these guys like surviving in this? It's like the car filled with like bags of beef jerky and Cheetos and Gatorade bottles. And these guys are probably smelling pretty ripe at this point.
Yes, my question in my notes is how long have they been waiting in there?
Now that's a movie I would like to see. Like let's do the Darkman prequel with these guys just hanging out in the crate.
So everyone pretty much at this point all has machine guns and they're all firing at each other. Durant is standing perfectly still in the middle of all this chaos, not getting hit. He has a revolver and he takes out the drivers of both cars with a single shot as they whiz past him. Still on board, still loving this crazy bullshit. That was phenomenal.
Okay, so the movie hasn't lost you yet. So
no, it's amazing at this point.
I'm very curious as to where the point hits that you're just like, all right, no, this shit's done.
So Eddie stands there shocked as Durant and his sidekicks, Spicoli, Wooden Leg Guy, and Ted Raimi, we don't know his name, he's just there. They all approach him calmly. 2 other of Durant's henchmen jump out of nowhere and grab Eddie, and it's just them now. Durant uses his cigar cutter, his signature thing, and he starts taking off Eddie's fingers or breaking them one by one. We don't really see it though, but we know he's doing it.
In my notes, the things that kind of popped up of everything you just said was one, Larry Drake is such an amazing villain. He's just got the natural look of like a bad guy. Like, he doesn't even have to show emotion. He just looks like he's evil.
Is that why he was Dr. Giggles, do you think?
I kind of wonder because like he's just like, I kind of imagine like, when his mom gave birth to him, like the doctor came out and like, oh shit, this guy's going to be evil. And I love how you call the guy wooden leg guy, because I wrote down Hoppy.
Like that better. Hoppy.
So I giggle. I can't stop laughing when I'm watching them like take out all these guys and you're seeing him hop back and forth. The guy puts up the arm and he's like, I'm fucking annoyed with you hopping, dude. Just grab the arm.
Yes. The guy's committing, whether he really is an actor who just has the one leg or not, he's committing, and it's fucking hilarious.
It is amazing.
So as he's screaming and fading out here, the credits begin, title card, and then the rest of the credits roll over some smoke and fog, which I don't like. I like credits over movie, but okay. We fade now into a lab, and in rapid succession, we get shots of him and some Liam Neeson and some other guy just doing some sciencey stuff in his lab. But what gets me is the trope. Whenever you have a lab or scientific equipment, it's just not right and believable unless you have a lit Bunsen burner right next to your microscope.
I think every scientist has to have that. I mean, to me, it's like
going at all times.
Yeah, it's like if it's not lit at all times, it doesn't work. And I mean, like, who knows? Maybe he's boiling a pot of Mountain Dew or something. I have no idea. But to me, the decor that brings the room together is that little bird that bops back and forth. I love that little. I don't know what that thing's called, but that little bird that just keeps bopping back and forth. Like that needs.
Yeah, the bottom is weighted, and so the head keeps tipping back and forth by itself. Yeah, it's really cool.
I love those things, and I just have this. Sometimes I wonder if there's something like mentally wrong with me, that like the smallest things, like the simplest things, can just bring me so much joy.
So here's where the movie starts to lose me. The opening was fantastic. Then we get a completely different movie after the credits stop. We get this rapid succession shot of a man photographing somebody's nose, feeding the picture, so 80s, into this machine, basically 3D printing a nose out of latex is what's happening. It's supposed to be a human skin compound. And what cracked me up was they even do a quick shot. You know that toy with all the pins and it's flat and you can push it against your face and make an impression of your face? Yeah. They even show a shot of that with the nose.
I love it because it's cheesy, but I did not put two and two together about that being that toy. And now I will never be able to look at it the same way.
It's bananas. Like, what does this toy have to showing us that they're making the nose, I guess?
There's several different ways they could have went with that. I kind of feel like maybe they just blew the budget on everything else. And it's like, you know what? Let's just go down to the toy store, grab this thing, and we'll go with this.
It was fucking funny. So Liam Neeson now, he's looking at a sample of this skin compound under a microscope. And we know that because it's little live cells bouncing around. He's telling it, again, we immediately start with the talking to myself voiceover, hold together, like he's begging it to be a stable compound. We see the molecules or whatever moving around like it's alive. And then it falls apart, doesn't hold together.
What I like about this scene, and I see where it bothers you, and I get that. And I think the reason I like it is because aside from the comic book thing that I always bring up, it kind of feels like the old Universal monster films. Like you could see like this being a scene from Frankenstein with Victor, like, building the monster and doing the stuff and doing the external monologue and everything. So I really enjoy that kind of stuff.
So he asks his assistant, and we still don't know their names yet, why the liquid skin isn't lasting. And then we see the nose melt in this petri dish. It's so gross. It looks really cool. They discuss how close they are to perfecting the skin as we fade out to a rundown looking building, and Liam and a woman are lying on a sofa looking at slides on the wall of very old school pictures of them when they were young. And this is Frances McDormand. Again, like I said, I was shocked to see her in this because I think of her as like an Oscar caliber, dramatic leading lady, type of actress. She has a fantastic sense of humor because she's married to one of the Coen brothers.
it sounded like they were friends or something before the movie, because I read like the trivia and stuff that it sounded I almost got the kind of hint that like it was like almost like a favor to kind of do the picture or something like that.
Okay.
And it kind of sounded like they, after the movie, there was a bit of a strained relationship between Raimi and her, almost
Aw.
like she may have been a little bit difficult to work with on set.
Yeah.
I can kind of understand why, though, because this is probably not her type of movie.
Don't make my Frances a diva. I don't want to think of her as a diva.
Hey, you're ruining Darkman for me. I get to ruin Frances for you.
All right. So the building, later we figure this out. We don't know this right now because I was confused as hell. It was an old business on the bottom. It looked like it said like Java House or something. It's just, and now it's transformed into his makeshift lab. And above it, the second level is his apartment where she stays over a lot, I guess. And from the outside, it doesn't look like that. It just looks like a big rundown building. But apparently that's the situation. His lab shit is on the one level and his apartment's on the other level.
I think that's kind of how I took it. I mean, like when I was younger, I just thought like, okay, it was the lab and the apartment were all like in the same space, and like below it was still a coffee shop, which I absolutely would have loved. If that was the case of like, like, oh, okay, we'll just go down and serve some coffee or get some coffee, come back up. There's customers coming into the building while he's trying to do all this shit. I would have loved that. They should have went with that. But apparently, yes, it was an abandoned coffee shop.
So she asks him how the skin project is going, and he says it still won't last past 99 minutes. They just can't figure it out, by golly. So they kind of start making out and they insinuate they're going to have sex. And we cut to them in bed. The woman's asleep and he's sitting there staring at her. So R-rated movie. Give me some sex, people. Give me something. No, we don't get any.
I'm on the verge of like when a younger me would have appreciated some sex, but older me is like, all right, I'm kind of sick of the sex. Unless sex makes sense in the movie, like actually has a like specific purpose to be in the movie, I get so irritated with sex scenes.
Really?
Yeah, because I'm like, okay, if I want to watch gratuitous sex, porn exists, so I can just go watch that. If it's going to slow down the movie just because, the director is horny and wants to show some tits, I'm like, come on, guys, you give me the story here.
We fade now in today and we hear the woman calling Liam Peyton. So now we know, okay, his name is Peyton. I hate that because I associate Peyton with a woman as a woman's name, which I know it can go either way. But in my mind, that ruined it for me because every time I looked at him, I was thinking of like Peyton Place or something. I just wanted him to be a Southern belle. I'm like, no, you're not a Peyton.
Yeah, no, Peyton does seem like a very feminine name. I mean, like, look at Peyton Manning.
Yeah, I never thought of that, Peyton Manning, but still, I just hate that for a guy. Anyway, okay, my personal problem. She's on the phone with her boss, and she's saying that she found a memo that she thinks is showing bribes or payoffs from Strack Industries to a public works office. And we see that somebody has set their drink on it. Like I think he sets a coffee on it for a second, and it makes a coffee ring on the memo.
Yeah.
Which makes it very recognizable for future, which is what I immediately wrote in my notes. Oh, that's going to come back.
Oh yeah, no, that was the sim. Like the moment you see that happening, you're like, okay, this piece of paper has some kind of importance, and it will come back later on.
So also I laughed because Strack Industries, if you swap the R and the A, what do you get?
Stark. That took me a little second because the hamster in my head was not running on the wheel, so he hadn't had his morning coffee yet.
As soon as I saw that name on the memo, I just went, eye roll. Really?
The funny thing is, like, when you said Strack Industries, this is how hardcore nerd I am. I went to Strag, which is a part of DC Comics, the evil scientist guy who creates Metamorpho from DC Comics. And so, like, I'm going the complete opposite nerd level, and you go Stark, and I'm like,
well, because I have limited, comic knowledge. So my mind just went right to Iron Man. So we're not clear at this point what she does for a living. He calls her Julie. So we know her name is Julie. We don't know what Julie does. She's dressed in a suit. She's talking about a memo she stumbled on. And I'm like, oh no, is this another Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles where she's like a reporter and she stumbled on some evidence of something? And oh God, here we go. Because I've never seen this. So I'm like, what is they going to copy that too?
I mean, you got to admit, this movie needed some ninjas.
Agreed. So they make it seem with the music and the way she's talking about this like it's a super dangerous situation. Like she shouldn't be messing with this memo and the shady dealings that it obviously is about. I like how movies in the 80s and 90s, and again with the Ninja Turtles with April O'Neil, they made it seem like if you're watching movies that it was super dangerous to be a reporter or somebody who was uncovering shady dealings between businesses and other people, that you would most certainly be put in a perilous situation and or killed and your loved ones. Why did anybody become a reporter or any kind of job like this where you come across information after 1995? Why did anybody want that job? Because these movies made it seem so dangerous.
But at the same time, it made it seem so cool.
So Peyton runs after her outside as she's leaving for work, and he's calling her, Julie, Julie. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is what you were talking about. We're going to hear her name 500 times in this movie, aren't we?
Oh, yes.
He's trying to keep her fast pace up. He just stops her while she hails a cab, and he says, hey, I've been thinking we should get married. I get it. We got shit to do. We got to get moving here with the movie. But could it be in a more less romantic way? I mean, he just runs up and says, we should get married. She's like, I've got things going for me at the firm. So then we're like, oh, firm. Okay, so she's what, an attorney, maybe? She says, I like having my own place. And you're like, oh, okay, this is his place, like I thought. He says, well, we practically live together already. You're always over here. She's like, I can't talk about it right now. And she hops in the cab. He asks her again while she's leaning out of a cab window, just marry me. This is so not romantic. I'm glad she doesn't say yes.
Okay.
Bitch has standards, at least.
Okay, so this is so you've got your go-to move, which is ripping the movie apart like a vulture, just like shredding the meat from the bones of the movie. And here comes me with the logic. Okay.
Hit me with the logic bomb. I'm ready.
They're that power couple that is like they're both so busy with their lives and their jobs, and like, I mean, like, how many scientists are actually romantic people? I mean, like, I don't picture a scientist being an overly romantic person, because you're thinking logically in the world of science. And I've highly doubt.
Cut to one of our listeners right now who's a scientist typing a firmly worded email to you.
Bring it, dude. If you're a romantic, then okay, woo me. Bring me flowers and chocolates and woo my ass.
Woo me.
And I will apologize on air.
Prove me wrong.
But it's like, I don't picture Neil deGrasse Tyson like bed of roses and candles and chocolates and all that stuff.
It doesn't even need to be all that, but it has to be more than chasing me down the street to a cab when I'm going to work and just going, hey, we should get married. Oh, come on.
Well, you said it a little bit more romantic like that. It wasn't like he was a situation on Jersey Shore.
Just a little effort is all I'm asking for, my Francis. Come on. So she says, not going to talk about it right now. And she leaves for work. Oh, before she runs off, though, she does say she loves him and he says he loves her, but he looks so sad when she drives off. And I'm like, well, what'd you expect, dude?
Got one of the best sad faces. Like, it's like when Liam Neeson looks sad, he looks sad. He's just like that.
Yes. See also Love Actually. So we cut to Julie now in an office with Mr. Strack. She tells him she saw the memo. He immediately admits to it, shows her a futuristic looking model of a building complex and says it's going on the waterfront. This is what I'm having done, and apparently what the memo refers to. He asks her for the memo. Give me the memo and all is good. And she says, well, I don't have it with me. And what I thought was funny about this was the fact that he not only admits to it right away, he says, and I have a guy that works for me, Robert Durant, who's into drugs, racketeering, and real estate. And it's very dangerous for you to be involved in this. So you need to just forget you saw the memo. Why does he tell her all of this information to make it more dangerous for her and to implicate himself? Why didn't he just deny? Memo? What memo?
Because he's an evil businessman. He's got the ego of his like, you can't touch me. This is my world. I own the city. That's the vibe I got from him, was he's that typical 80s, 90s like businessman, which is like, I have still, like how we talked about with the turtles and like the martial arts thing. The other trope was like every evil person in these movies at this time period is a businessman, because for some reason, like, businessmen were just scumbags. So I figure he owns the city, so he can get away with whatever he wants.
Okay, well, this is where the movie just was really losing me fast. As each minute of him speaking goes by, like he just admits to everything, tells her everything. She didn't know about Robert or any of that.
I just picture you like starting the movie with this huge grin on your face, and like minute by minute, it's like this slow like fade into this frown. Like by the end, you're just like glaring at the screen of like wanting to punch the movie.
I'm not going to lie. This movie did steal a little piece of my soul. It stole a little bit of my joy. I'll get it back. So after he mentions all of this and says it's super dangerous for you to know all this, I'm so glad I told you. We cut to later at the lab. The nose cells of the skin are holding together longer, but the power goes out. Peyton says, oh my God, light bulb. The cells are photosensitive. They need the dark to hold together. Okay, that's fine to use all this science-y, jargony stuff to talk about this in this scene. It's not sustainable for real life, this nose. You're not going to live in the dark. And I know they're trying to set up Darkman and he'll be fine in the shadows or, whatever. Wouldn't it stand to reason? And this is immediately what I was thinking, because I know I've seen images that he is bandaged later. At this point in the movie, if you know the cells hold together by not being exposed to light, why wouldn't you put your face on and then wrap it to keep it from the light and keep it on you to see how long you can keep it sustainable? Why have we not tried that? Riddle me that, Batman.
I'm assuming because
you got nothing and it's okay.
Son of a bitch. All right, my logic just drained. I have no idea. I don't know. You got me on that one. That's a good point. He should have figured that out.
Now, I'm no scientist, but I figured that out immediately.
Well, apparently he's no scientist either.
So as they discuss their new discovery here, we cut to Durant and his motley crew busting in, roughing Peyton and his lab assistant up. Durant tells Peyton he wants the memo. Okay, so we know who he is because Strack told us all about him. We know what the memo is. We know he's here for it. My question was, why did they come to his place? Because Julie made it very clear a few moments ago outside at the cab that she doesn't live there. She has her own place. Why do we assume that they think it's at his place? What?
I mean, I'm assuming a good evil. I mean, we don't know the time passage between when Julie was there and when she met Strack. The huge time jump. So it's like, I don't know, maybe she stopped by for lunch at some point.
My thought was they're busting into the lab to rough him up, to threaten Julie to hand over the memo. But no, they ask for the memo here at Peyton's. I was like, what? That doesn't make any sense. So movie, again, continuing to lose me moment by moment.
I mean, there's also the possibility that maybe, Durant assumed that Peyton was just Julie, like, like maybe like they're the same person, like Peyton goes out and then puts on the wig.
Puts on the Julie mask.
Yeah, I mean, like, he's building the mask anyway. So like there could have been that.
So
I'm going to blame it on just bad writing.
Thank you.
I will concede to you.
Well, again, 12 drafts later. So Peyton says he doesn't know what they're talking about. And a thug puts his face through at least 3 different glass cabinets.
I love that scene.
What?
It's hilarious. It's because it felt like a Three Stooges thing. The way his head goes in and like just the way he's acting, like his head's shaking around. It made me laugh.
Then they throw him down and a machine actually falls on top of him, pinning him to the floor. Yeah, it's just craziness.
This whole like him getting beat up felt like it came out of a Three Stooges movie.
So Durant says, I want the memo. And he has his thugs kill the lab assistant as Peyton watches. We don't see it. I feel like this movie shortchanges us. We don't really see some cool deaths. We don't see the sex. They're shortchanging us at this point. Again, why I felt let down moment by moment. Like what am I here to see? A nose melt in a petri dish?
I'm seeing a whole new side of you. I did not know that you were this much of a like horny, just like, wanting the blood and the guts as well. It's like, geez.
I really do. In fact, on social media, I was discussing with somebody in the horror group about the Human Centipede and Hostel and things like that. And I, for some reason, over the years have gotten less squeamish, and I am here for the crazy, bonkers, gory bullshit. I want it. Give it to me.
Well, I just watched Human Centipede last year. I'm assuming this is not going to show up in the podcast.
Oh, yes, it is.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I will not mention the name. The girlfriend got me to watch it. I absolutely love that movie, and I do not understand why people are like, "This is disgusting."
It's bonkers.
There's like one disgusting scene in the entire movie. The rest of it was just like, "This is freaking awesome."
For a while, you can't believe you're actually seeing what you're seeing.
Yeah, it's ridiculously dumb, but awesome at the same time. And it's just like, it is not as gross as people made it out to be.
Yeah, I think they work it up in their head and then they don't watch the movie. They just work up what they think it's going to be. Anyway, okay, sorry, this is not a Human Centipede podcast. So a thug reaches over and finds the memo sitting, and it was on a bed in the earlier scene. Julie left it sitting on the bed. So how the thug finds the memo here in the lab, I didn't understand that. But he finds it, and two other thugs grab Peyton, and they try to dunk him into this big open vat of a red liquid, and he stops them from This movie lost me right here completely. He stops them from dunking him by putting his hands on these two posts on either side of the vat of liquid that are apparently electrified because it burns his hands to a crisp immediately. Why do you have electrified right next to this liquid, this water, whatever it is? That seems wildly unsafe. This lab has just got to blow up at some point. This is so unsafe.
Well, I mean, like, obviously he's studying from the Victor Frankenstein School of Laboratory building, because this is what it looks like to me. I'm assuming the electrified pillars were there to probably supercharge the liquid, which is, some kind of chemical that probably helps create the liquid skin to keep it holding together.
I just didn't understand how he didn't get electrocuted by touching the water, because if it's electrified, it was just weird to me.
Yeah, but it's like, you can't stop Liam Neeson. Nothing will kill this man.
Now that his hands are burnt to a crisp, he lets go and he's freaking out. And so they go ahead and dunk him now because he doesn't try to stop them. And Durant turns the nozzle open on some tanks of flammable gas that are in the lab there. We see Peyton on the floor, and at least half of his face looks damaged, scarred, and burned and melty. Outside, Julie is arriving home in a cab just as Durant's two cars of men are pulling away. So inside now, we see Peyton crawling across the floor for a good 30 seconds at least toward the flammable gas tanks. Instead of going for the door to get out, he goes toward the flammable gas. And on the table is that cute little bobbing head thing you were talking about. I don't know if it's a chicken or a duck with a top hat on, whatever it's supposed to be.
I always assumed it was a chicken. I don't know why, but just because the bobbing reminds me of a chicken pecking for feed and everything.
That makes sense. So it's positioned over a Bic lighter, and it looks like it's getting closer and closer to hitting it and igniting it. I didn't understand how this thing works. It looked to me like one of those Newton's cradles where it's going to continually bob at the same pace because the weight on the bottom doesn't change and it swings the head back and forth. Like what makes it go harder and faster to where it's going to eventually get down low enough to hit the lighter? I didn't understand the physics of that.
I kind of wonder if it's got something to do with, because like there's it looks like the head is a circle, it's got the little beak on it, and the bottom is the little circle, and there's probably like obviously a connection between the two. I kind of wonder if there's like a liquid inside, and so the bobbing is making the liquid go back and forth, so that's causing the counterweight action and the reaction. I
don't know. It looked cool. And it was fun in theory, but I didn't see how it actually works.
I don't see how it's going to end up lighting the lighter. Like that's the part where like everything that made you lose, like, no movie, this can't happen. This is the part to me that was like, no, I'm pretty sure I'm a former smoker. So I kind of know how lighters work. And this is not going to work on a lighter.
Yeah, I didn't see how the whole thing at all would work, but that's their gimmick for this, and that's fine because it comes back later as well. So it gets ignited. Peyton goes flying as the building explodes, launched up into the air in a horrible looking CGI effect. And that's the thing that really dates this movie.
I literally wrote down, getting blown out of an apartment seems very plausible.
You would be laying there on the floor and the building would explode around you and catch fire and you'd be dead. He gets launched instead. And I'm like, how did that happen? What?
That is the most, like, that is probably to me the cheesiest thing in the entire movie was that. I forgot about that scene. And when I was watching it, I was like, what the fuck?
So Julie sees all this happen, but she does not see him flying up into the air and landing in the water off to the side. So then we cut to Julie standing at a grave site, which obviously is his.
And I loved that transition. That is so Raimi. That transition from her like in the street watching, like mourning for his death, to going to the funeral thing. Like, oh, that was just so cool, the way that he does those weird transitions.
Yeah. My question was, did he have no friends, or was the funeral totally over? Because at this point, it's just Julie standing there and the priest at the gravesite, and it's already sealed, like he's been buried already. And then off to the side, we have a limo who is transporting Julie. The limo driver is talking to the gravedigger, and we hear them talking. And he's telling the limo driver all they found was a piece of an ear. So we know that there's no body buried here. Well, we saw him go in the water anyway. But this comes back later. I'll have a big gripe about it. Julie knows, though, right now, they only found a piece of an ear. He's assumed dead. They would have found his bones at least, even if his skin was all burned. Something.
I would assume so, yeah, because I mean, like the fire would have had to have been incredibly hot to destroy every ounce of evidence, and even then, it's like you would have had something left. I mean, even like cases of spontaneous human combustion, there are pieces left of the body. So
and that's why I was like, how did a piece of cartilage and skin survive? Bullshit.
Yeah, no, that didn't make sense. It would have been like better to have just said, okay, well, there was no body. We assumed the whole thing was charred or like melt, like whatever. Just do that to leave
Thank
the ear
you.
behind.
Hollywood, hire us. We just wrote a better scene for you that makes fucking sense. Piece of an ear. So we cut to Peyton all wrapped up in bandages, head to toe, strapped to a spinning wheel that looks like something out of Annie Get Your Gun, like from the old timey Wild West when they would spin the girl and throw daggers at her.
Oh, yeah.
So he's on one of those in a hospital. We see a female doctor leading a group of other doctors, I'm assuming interns. And I had to look this up. I paused it because I'm like, who is this doctor?
I did the same thing. I was just going to ask you if you knew who she was.
I knew who she was, but I had to confirm because I was like, because she's not in the credits for Darkman. Jenny Agutter from American Werewolf in London. I loved that she was in this, but I felt bad for her that every line out of her mouth is complete and utter stupidity.
Before I recognized who she was, I wrote down, boy, that doctor was a real prick.
She's telling these other doctors that this man was found at the river, no ID. They assume he's a homeless man. Now, I'll let that go because they couldn't fingerprint him. However, he has lots of teeth. We see it later. Even his burned ass face has teeth still. Why they didn't do a dental check to see who he was
doesn't make any sense.
So she says he's got burns over 40% of his body. Hands and face are the most severe. She explains they severed the nerves of his spinothalamic tract, so he will no longer feel pain. Okay. She even pokes him with a pin through his bandages to show that he doesn't feel pain. He's asleep or sedated right now. He's not awake. I was like, what is actually happening right now? What?
That always kind of made me a little confused. I couldn't tell if, okay, can he just not feel anything? Can he not feel pain? Like that confused me a little bit. The pinprick was a little like weird. Like, okay, one, why is a doctor going to do that? That seems a little cruel for any doctor to like just prick you.
So they do this surgery on him where they sever the nerves for that. I'll get past it. Oh my God. She explains that the operation has some serious side effects. You didn't have his consent to do this, but you did it anyway.
That's one of the serious side effects is a possible lawsuit in the future.
She says when the body, I felt so bad for her that she had to say this with a straight face. When the body is deprived of sensory input, the mind grows hungry for stimulation, and it can cause the mind to feel alienation loneliness, and uncontrolled rage. What? What am I watching? This is nonsense.
It is essentially a homage to the classic Universal horror films. You go back and watch those, and there's a lot of like, what the hell is going on moments. So I'm assuming, I'm just hoping he meant it to be this campy. I'm hoping he did not go in expecting this to be
Taken seriously.
Because yeah, none of this stuff, I don't take any of this stuff seriously because it loses you on so many levels.
She adds, it gets better. Unchecked amounts of adrenaline will also run through his body, giving him augmented strength. Are you serious right now? Are we just trying to like lazily explain why he does stuff later in the movie without being phased? I mean, I guess.
Hey, it worked in Superman.
Oh, Superman, this is not,
sir. No, it's not Superman, but it's like at the same time, it's like, that's lazy. Like, oh, how does he have all these powers? It came from another world.
Well, see, that's the thing. Darkman doesn't have powers.
No.
He can't feel pain, so he can get stabbed and doesn't feel it. He keeps going.
That to me is where it kind of like loses. Like it feels like you can't do a horror superhero mashup, because if you're going to go superhero, you got to go full on, give him powers. If you're going to go horror, then you got to go horror. And this is where it starts to kind of get a little confusing. We
do, though, get some good Raimi direction here with bad CG and effects that remind me of Army of Darkness. But Peyton wakes up and then we go inside his mind. And this is where the Raimi stuff of showing all the weird images of what's going through his mind. He's feeling confusion, rage. He doesn't know what's happening. And it's a good way to show us what's going on in his head, the way Raimi does this. However, that's all we get is a quick, few seconds of that. He busts out of his restraints and has apparently gone out the window several stories up into the rainy night in these full body bandages.
Okay, I love that scene visually anyways. I think it's kind of cool just because, like I said, I love that kind of stuff. I kind of had felt a comparison, and I wonder if he reuses this medical thing later in Spider-Man 2 with Dr. Octopus, and was that his way of apologizing to the world for what he did in Darkman? Because he does it so much better with Dr. Octopus. Damn it, you're making me just look at this movie in a terrible light.
Hey, I'm just shining a light on the truth, man. I'm just giving you the facts.
You're ruining my childhood.
We cut now to Peyton in a dark alley. It's raining, pouring so much that the ground looks flooded, ankle deep. He's falling into these deep puddles, trying to put on a trench coat that I'm guessing he got from a dumpster. He's stumbling across through this alley. And all I was thinking in this 90 seconds shot was that is going to be so infected.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to go somewhere else, but yes, you're right. He would definitely get infected, and it's probably going to smell like ass because it's basically picking up dumpster clothing.
He's laying in these filthy puddles with raw burn shit on his skin under these bandages.
That could be an extra superpower. Well, not superpower, but medical condition that we don't know about. Maybe he's now immune to raw sewage and things as well. I thought it was kind of cool. It reminded me a little bit of The Crow. When Eric comes out of the grave and he's going through the alley in the pouring rain and he's picking up the boots out of the dumpster. And for some reason, these movies share a lot of similarities of, for some reason, superheroes that become superheroes at some point always have to go through a rainy alley in the night and pick out their costumes out of a dumpster.
It's like a rite of passage.
Exactly.
So he stumbles across the street and startles Julie, who is going into her apartment building. Her reaction in this scene is ludicrous. I was like, that is not how a normal person would react in this situation. And he's not trying hard enough. I know he's having trouble speaking. He's like, and can't talk. You would think he would lean in and try a little harder, but whatever, it is what it is. So she just ignores him, and goes inside. And it's really weird. Her reaction to this is just super calm and weird.
Well, we already know he's not a romantic, so it's not like he could have stopped off at Walgreens and got her some flowers and chocolates or anything and be like, hey, I'm sorry that I'm half dead.
Sorry, I'm half dead.
By the way, have you seen my ear?
So the next day, he goes to his lab to find it all just burnt to a crisp, hardly anything salvageable. He grabs a piece of broken glass, finds a mirror on the wall, and starts to cut away at the bandage on his face. And we cut away. We don't get to see any of this. Again, movie shortchanging us because we hear him screaming. So we know he got it off and saw himself in the mirror. We don't get to see any of it. And again, I thought broken shard of glass, raw, burnt, fresh skin under this, and he's scraping away at it and taking off the protective bandage. He's not in his right mind by any means.
Well, I mean, he wasn't the moment he signed on to be in this picture, but that's a different subject. Where you say we were shortchanged by not seeing him.
Yeah.
I loved that because now starting to understand like some of the behind the scenes stuff of filmmaking and things and starting to study the directors a little bit better. I loved the fact that it was a build up to when we are going to see him because you know what's going to happen. So I love the connection of like pan away and we get a hint at what he's going to look like by seeing the picture that is basically burnt with half of his face gone. So it's kind of like that anticipation of what is he going to look like, but also kind of establishing, okay, no, his face is fucked up.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So then we immediately cut to him outside, rebandaged face, wearing a big coat and a hat, much like Raphael from Ninja Turtles.
And once again, no one notices the mummy walking around in a trench coat and a hat.
So he's pushing a shopping cart with a bunch of supplies and equipment, half-burned computer monitors and whatnot that he's salvaged from his lab, I guess.
To me, and going back to my notes here, the thing that I wrote down was, I don't know what the hell happened, but apparently computers in the 90s were a hell of a lot more durable because if I friggin' sneeze on mine now, the son of a bitch shuts down on me. So this thing survived an explosion. So why are these companies not still in existence making these computers?
Because they're bulky. But I would argue that that's why they lasted, right? Because the big bulky monitor, only the one corner looks damaged. It looks fine otherwise.
Exactly. Yeah, like the old bulky TVs too. I smacked the hell out of my TV to get that thing working. And like I even look at my smart TV wrong and it like shuts down and explodes.
I know. So he finds a building to set up shop. And outside the chain link fence area, there's a sign that says building condemned or condemned site. So it's got a sign, it's got an identifier, it's got a fence around it. Somebody owns this lot. He goes in and sets up shop, starts a giant fire in this weird indoor pit to kind of, I don't know, warm the place up and get shit running. He manages to get electricity going in here. What I did laugh though is a gray cat with yellow eyes jumps out and hisses at him. And I was like, church.
I love that scene because I'm a cat person.
The cat from Pet Sematary.
It's a cute cat. I mean, like you went in church, I went, oh, kitty.
But he's an asshole cat because he hisses at him after he's trying to be nice and reach out and pet the cat.
Okay, I mean, I love cats, but I acknowledge all cats are assholes. That's just the way that they are. That's, I think, why we get along so well, because I'm an asshole too. So we have this connection.
Are you also an asshole of the animal kingdom?
Oh, yes. I mean, if someone tries to pet me, I scratch at them too. So
fair. So he sets up shop here. And to me, in my notes, just why? Why did he not stay at his old site where all his stuff was? Why? Why go find a building in worse shape?
All right, I'm going to throw out the two bits of logic because I know the next question that's going to be, where is the owner of this condemned building? There's electricity and everything going to it. Why?
And smoke from this big fire.
Yeah, so it's like, why is this person not coming to check on it? So here's my two bits of logic. One, he can't go back to the building because Starbucks is already moving in. Two, I assumed the cat was the owner, because the cat's already living there. So obviously the cat's either the security guard or owns the building.
So he feeds a photo of himself and Julie into the machine. And like you said, the photo shows only half his face. It's damaged. The machine doesn't recognize the ruined part of his face. Why it only chose his face and not Julie's was weird.
I assume that they cut out the scene where he was going to make a Julie face because this was a rated R movie and not an NC-17 movie, and we didn't want to see what was going to happen in the future.
He buys a blow-up doll and puts her face on it.
I mean, if you got the technology, aren't you going to go for it?
So he tweaks the machine and it tells him now facial reconstruction will take 571 hours and 57 minutes. So almost 24 full days for this to make the face. So, okay, I'm trying to think how to phrase this. The stuff that's going to happen now between now and when the face is done has to take 24 days or this doesn't make sense. They don't shoot it in a way that it feels like 24 days are passing. It feels like 3. It's bizarre.
Okay, that I did not pick up on. So you got me on that one. It does not feel like 24 days. It does feel like within a few days or so. So you're right. Although I guess if you go back and watch it, it does kind of make sense that it would take multiple days because there are scenes that kind of feel like, okay, it may have happened between day or two or something. So
right.
But I think that was just bad editing. But then again, the editor did go crazy and is probably in an asylum somewhere writing on the walls in his own feces. So this could explain what happened.
Curse Darkman, fuck Raimi and his poo on the wall. So we get a montage of him doing science-y stuff, continually having problems with his results.
At least he made friends with the cat.
Sort of.
Well, of course, because he's probably paying the cat rent now to stay there.
He's paying his rent in
Fancy Feast.
There you go. We also get an answer as to why he always has a flaming Bunsen burner right next to himself, because his hand accidentally catches fire now. It's bandaged, but it's hanging over the Bunsen and it gets caught on fire. He puts it out and then he just says out loud for the cat. That's why the cat's here. So he's not crazy guy talking to himself. He's talking to the cat. He says, "They took my hands." And he starts to like cry and moan about it.
Okay, I love the scene because again, we're going back to like the campiness of the Universal films, which is like this is what they do. I mean, you go back to, like it's alive, that's campy. I love that stuff. But yes, this is weird, especially because I feel like if it's not just pain, because it's like you're not going to just not feel pain. You're not going to feel anything. There's going to be no feeling to your hand whatsoever. So he should have known at some point that he cannot feel anything. I lose feeling in my arm when I like sleep on it wrong, and I know the next morning because it's just dangling there. I'm like walking around looking like the friggin' the mummy.
You're making an amazing point for me, because I was going to say, sometimes if I sit wrong on my arm, lean on my arm or whatever, and it goes numb, you can't use it. Like you can't pick up a glass or grab a pen when your hand goes completely numb. It doesn't function really. You can't really do much. How is he doing anything?
I don't understand. Yeah, because I mean, I literally just the other day, I don't know what the hell happened, but my hand went numb and I was trying to put on my fucking socks and I had a hell of a time doing that. I couldn't figure out how to do it.
You need those old man sock buddies where you put your sock on it and then you slide your foot in.
Apparently at that point I did, because it just like the hand would not work. I was like, how am I going to work this thing? Just like work hand, damn it. So yeah, it's like he should have figured this out a hell of a lot sooner. I could not get that. This was my point where movie was like, okay, movie, you got to step up a little bit because this does not make sense to me.
So we fade into Strack Industries City of the Future ball in this big ballroom. Movies of this time, Batman makes me think of Batman, where big businessmen and dirty businessmen and politicians are always throwing balls, galas.
Yeah, but don't you like 90s balls?
So fucking stupid. So stupid. And Julie's not even dressed for it. She's wearing like black and with like a little brooch. She looks like she's still dressed for the funeral.
She's still mourning Peyton.
I guess.
Okay. I know you like this woman as an actress. I know you do, but I could not get over the fact that this woman has one of the best cases of resting bitch face I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yes, she looks like she's sucking on a sour pickle at all times.
She really does. And it's like, if she's still out there and she ever hears this, I apologize, because I no disrespect, but it's like, you seriously have the most amazing resting bitch face.
It's called acting, or is it?
I don't feel like that was acting.
Yeah, we don't know.
I feel like that was the annoyance of being in this movie.
So here we go with more fucking 12 drafts of this script just fucked it over, because inside, Strack goes up to Julie and says he has to know if she's made a decision on that memo. And she says the decision was already made for us because it was destroyed in the fire. What?
Like, I could just see and feel where you're going with this, and I agree.
Well, then I don't need to go with it because you get it.
I mean, I'm assuming you're going with like the first thing that pops in my mind are, one, just bringing that up in conversation has got to kind of connect two and two, that, okay, obviously she has to figure out she's not an idiot. Well, I'm hoping she's not an idiot.
They don't paint her to be an idiot. No.
She's got to figure out that, okay, her future husband, I'm assuming they're going to get married, his home and lab is destroyed. This guy has already said that Durant is working for him, knows about the letter, wants, I mean, like, telling her to ignore it. Like, all the pieces connect to where it's like, okay, I feel like even at this point, April O'Neil could have put this story together of like, this guy is behind this shit.
It was painful.
It really was.
So then he apologizes to Julie and says, there's no cure for grief, but he knows what could help. And he twirls her out onto the dance floor and starts dancing with her.
It's because every businessman in the 90s automatically feels like you can cure anything with their penis.
Well, if he has an ego as big as you say, that would track. So Peyton is hiding in a vent high above the room and is hurt. Visibly, we see his eyes get sad when he sees Julie dancing, I guess, with another guy. We cut to Durant, random shot, here at this ball, talking to Ted Raimi about martinis. But then we immediately cut away. It's so weird.
I think, and this is where, because I didn't know about the 12 different scripts, I think there was more to this, because I did read, I don't know if it was a theory or what, that there was an undertone of Durant was supposed to be gay, and that maybe this was supposed to be his lover, and that's why there was an interest, because there was a little hint throughout the movie that kind of showed there possibly was a connection between the two.
That makes sense with the dialogue right here, because he says to Ted Raimi, do you want a martini? And he goes, that would be lovely, thank you, or something. And that seemed weird to me. Why would you ask your henchman if he wants you to get him a martini?
That's like a huge disappointment to me, because that would have made this character so much more interesting. I mean, to me, Larry Drake makes the whole friggin' movie for me. He really does. That character, I love Durant. And that would have made this villain so much more, like, also sympathetic and intriguing. Like, there's a backstory behind this character that really needed to be developed.
So now we just do an abrupt cut away from this ball, and we go to a room where there's the large bald henchman, part of Durant's crew. He appears to be passed out or sleeping on the bed, but then there's a man that looks just like him, his twin, sprucing himself up, getting ready to go out and like pinching the face, the skin on his face and shit. I was like, oh, okay. Like, I get it. Movie didn't put one over on me. I know what's happening here.
That's not clever.
Next, though, we see this man sitting in a restaurant. Two more of Durant's crew show up, and they give him a briefcase full of cash, and they call him Paulie. So I guess Paulie, they know him. He's part of the crew. They slip him the briefcase of cash. He leaves. And then we cut to Durant and one of the men from the restaurant busting into Paulie's room. He wakes up dressed in the same suit that he was wearing at the restaurant. He swears he fell asleep and doesn't know what happened. He missed the pickup. It wasn't him. Durant's threatening him, wants his money. Where's the money? He looks over and sees 2 plane tickets to Rio, and he tells Paulie, have a nice flight, and throws him out the window. Busts out the glass and everything, screaming all the way down, and lands on top of a car.
I do want to point out, I don't know if you're a hot dog fan, but
why?
Because I'm curious if I am the only person that was looking at Paulie's dish when they did the shot when he was like because when they were first showing Paulie, because like when Darkman is like, following everybody and taking the pictures and trying to get, like everyone's images into the computer to make the masks and stuff like that. And he's
They
following.
don't show any of that in the version I saw.
Okay, then you saw a different version.
They don't show him stalking everybody. All we saw was a hot dog in front of Polly at the restaurant with sauerkraut on it.
Oh yeah, because he was stalking Paulie, because when I watched it, he was stalking Paulie. He was taking the pictures of Paulie.
Wasn't in the version I saw.
Oh, okay. So you saw a different version than I saw.
Interesting.
I wonder if that's why, because when I saw it, Ted Raimi's character died before Paulie.
Not in the version I saw.
Wow.
Weird.
Okay, so, yeah, we saw a totally different version of the movie, because that's why I was like, wait a second, Ted dies before.
Okay, that explains it. Two different versions.
But yeah, it's like version I saw, he's following him, takes the pictures and stuff. And then I like literally when I watched that scene, I see this big ass hot dog covered in sauerkraut. Next day, I ordered hot dogs and sauerkraut because I was like, oh my God, I want a hot dog loaded with sauerkraut now. So I got so freaking hungry over that.
I love sauerkraut. I don't eat hot dog a lot of hot dogs make me sick. I have to eat specific ones. But when I do occasionally have one of those, I load it with sauerkraut and mustard. Oh.
Yeah, I throw some onions on there too and stuff, chopped onions and everything.
Oh, I wish I could.
I like the good hot dogs, the ones with the snap to it.
Mike's like that too.
I don't know if you ever had we have ones here called Casper's. They're like the long hot dog. Oh, they're so freaking good. Yeah, they got that snap to it.
A lot of the movies we watch do that. We'll get done and I'll want a beverage or a food that was in the movie.
I'm the same way. I mean, I'm looking forward to our next movie to find out what food adventure I will be going on next.
All right, so we cut now to him landing on that car, and there's a woman standing there on the street watching this, and she's screaming bloody murder. I had to turn the volume down because it was so much. And then we see fake Polly sitting on a bus bench right behind that lady. She turns around and sees him and then keeps screaming. I was like, bitch, shut up.
Which was like, okay, I can understand the confusion and the excitement of you just saw the same guy die, but how do you know that wasn't his twin? Maybe they just weren't, like very close or something.
Thank you. I was thinking that too. Could be a twin or a doppelganger. We have them.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of logical explanations. It doesn't have to be like, like maybe he's the ghost or something. So like, bitch, chill out. It's not that big a deal.
So fake Polly looks at his watch and sees the timer hitting 98 minutes, and he starts to panic and run off as we see a little bit of his face starting to like bubble and smoke.
I really loved that effect with the whole the face bubbling thing. That was kind of a cool little like horror kind of vibe to it, of like being like seeing the faces melt and stuff. I feel like you could have gone a little darker with it, like literally show the face melting off of him so you could see full on scar face Darkman. I would have loved to see that.
Yes, you've tapped into something which is a core problem I have with this movie. It doesn't know what it's trying to be. Are you a horror movie? Are you trying to be a superhero movie? Are you an action movie? Are you a drama? What are you, movie? Pick a lane, because it doesn't lean heavily into any of those.
Yes, this movie had a huge identity crisis. It felt like it was a movie that was suffering from a split personality disorder of some kind.
Yes.
It just kind of needed to settle down on one specific genre.
So then we cut to a bad CGI night shot of Peyton all bandaged up again, sitting on top of a very tall building and just saying, "What have I become?" It's so stupid.
His performance is just over the top. And I think that's why I love it so much, because I've become such a huge fan of bad acting and bad movies. I really have. Like right now, like me and the girlfriend, like we're obsessed with this horrible actor named Jeff Kirkendall, who often works for a company called the Polina Brothers, and they do movies that are terrible. Like one of the movies we love is called House Squatch. Terrible movies. Yes, these are terrible movies, horrible special effects, bad acting, but they're so much fun to watch. And I've become a fan I like watching bad acting at times. They're just fun to watch. And I think a lot of this tracks back to my love of Mystery Science Theater 3000. It's fun to watch a bad movie and just rip it apart.
Okay, so side note, what are your like top 2, top 3? What's your favorite Mystery Science Theater?
In my opinion, the best Mystery Science Theater episode of all time, Mitchell.
Yes, me too.
It is so amazing. Everything about that movie is terrible. They rip it apart so beautifully. The only thing I hate about it is that it's Joel's last episode.
Yeah, he
That
was my
breaks,
favorite.
yeah, that breaks my heart. I mean, Mike goes on to own that series, but it's just like that's like the classic crew of the best Tom Servo, the best Crow.
That's your favorite, Mitchell.
Mitchell is my favorite. I mean, I've got a fondness for the Godzilla ones, obviously.
Okay.
Godzilla versus Megalon is great. They just tear that movie apart, and I grew up loving Godzilla versus Megalon, but like as a Godzilla fan, you can even like look at it and be like, this is shit.
So my top three is Mitchell, and then I love Pod People.
Yes.
And then I love I Accuse My Parents, the black and
Oh.
white one. Those are, I can rewatch those three endlessly.
I love the short before I Accuse My Parents.
Yes.
So great.
Is that the truck farming one or?
I believe it was the truck farming one, yes. With the why don't they look?
All right, so let's end that tangent and reel back into Darkman here. Later now, he is in his lab watching the microscope cells and timing it. His bandages on his face in this were so disturbing to me. He's filthy. His skin is red and swollen and gross. And it's like, is somebody putting Bactine on him or some kind of salve? Like, what is he doing to help his burnt skin heal? It's got to be infected at this point.
I'm assuming that none of this is covered by his HMO, so there's probably some difficulties getting a home nurse. I was kind of hoping maybe the cat was helping a little bit, like, you know, because obviously he's getting new bandages all the time. So I'm assuming like the cat is doing like, you know, like grocery runs to kind of help him out.
So speaking of the cat, Church here shows up, meows at him, and then this is his opportunity to rant. And I am guilty of this. I will talk to my dog, Miss Sandy, if I have something to say and nobody's around and I don't want to look crazy to nobody. I guess nobody's watching me. But he rants to the cat. What am I? What am I? Some kind of circus freak? And he starts ranting this and he freaks out, puts an oil funnel, like looking like the Tin Man from the Wizard of Oz, on his head, starts hopping around, chanting, look at the dancing freak, see the dancing freak, and he's freaking out and acting crazy and scares Church away. That cat just had to run. He was like, this is too much even for me.
What am I? Some kind of a circus freak? Is that it? Is that it? Some kind of a freak? Maybe I should be wearing a funny little hat. Do you like it? Yeah? Yeah? See the dancing freak. Pay $5. This is the dancing freak. Only $5 to see the dancing freak. $5.
That poor cat suffered so much. I'm hoping that, you know, he got a little extra gift, you know, a little extra fancy feast of some kind, maybe some saucer of milk or something as like an apology.
He's throwing shit. The cat is good that he left because he's throwing shit around now, grabs a water pipe, breaks it off the wall. Water starts going everywhere. How the guy who owns this building doesn't understand his astronomical water bill and come to check it out later, I don't know. But he starts breaking all his shit with this pipe. I'll show you who's a freak. And he's just, I'm at a loss. I wish I could turn this movie off right now. Seriously, if I'd been watching it on my own dime, I would have turned it off by now. He sees his reflection in a puddle and calms down, telling himself, keep a lid on it. You're a scientist. Control the rage. And he drops the pipe and calms down. It's so dumb.
I mean, every classic Universal horror film has the moment where the monster or the scientist or whatever has the breakdown. So, of course, you have to have this in this movie. I just absolutely love that I am torturing you with some of my choices. But I'm also dreading the initial payback that will be coming at some point.
I was just going to say, sir, you're next. So his computer has this lovely feminine voice that gives us a nice voiceover. Reconstruction program is now complete. And we see that the timer is on 0 now from the 572 hours that it had been counting down to make his face. So we've just talked about what has happened in 23 days. And it doesn't sound like it took 23 days. The ball, the meeting with Polly, that's a week tops.
It could be, like maybe that this was a hard ball to kind of plan. So there could have been a huge time period in between. The movie did horrible editing. I mean, like I said, we understand now why the man went crazy and is now in the asylum. It's just so much wrong with it. And I hate that you're pointing this out and you're just killing this for me.
Well, we're not done. Luckily, we have a lot more. So Peyton sees the hologram of his face looks correct now. There's no missing piece like in the photo. It's all filled in. And then we cut to Julie at Peyton's grave. He shows up and she yells, "No, who are you?" His body was never recovered. They found the impossible piece of ear that wouldn't exist. No body. Why is it such just a huge stretch for her to think he could be alive and that is him?
Maybe she was talking to the ear.
I was just like, her reaction is bizarre. Anyway, Peyton says, "Yes, it's me. I was in a coma in a hospital." And he says he's sorry, but he needed to see her. And she says she doesn't understand. He just explained it to you, dum-dum. Cut to the two of them sitting at an outside cafe. She says she doesn't want to be without him again. And he says he needs her too, but he also needs time to figure things out. Figure what?
There's a lot of possibilities here. I mean, there's, he's got to like wrap his mind around the fact that he's becoming a monster.
Yeah, but
doesn't have a face.
What? He's becoming a monster? This idiot should not have left the hospital in the first place.
No, he should have. He should not have left the hospital in the first place. But at the same time, it's like, with a doctor like that, I would have left the hospital too.
Yeah, bitch, you severed my nerves. I am taking you and the hospital for everything you're worth.
Exactly. And it's not like he didn't have the opportunity. He could have hired Larry Drake to represent him. So like there was possibilities here.
That's right.
Yes, I was hoping we would make that connection at some point. I was sitting on that joke for a while.
That was what, LA Law?
Yes, LA Law.
So he asks her, would she be able to still look at him if he was horribly scarred? And she says, why would you ask me that? You're not. You're fine. This is so stupid. Mrs. Jones' 5th grade class could have written this script and I would not be able to argue otherwise. Yeah, I believe you. They did write it. Cut to Durant at home, I'm guessing, on the phone with somebody. He tells the person on the phone the money Paulie stole from him. He's short now, so he needs to know if the money from Chinatown has come through. The guy says no. Durant says, well, we will have to call upon Hung Fat to pay up, or he's going to become part of the collection. And the camera pans to him polishing his human fingers and putting them in a little collectible case.
That was so creepy. And I love that because it just ties to this like underlying thing that they did not touch on, that a thing that might have been in one of the other 11 scripts that did not get made, that Durant had a military history. And so it's like, okay, you picture like that Vietnam thing of like always Vietnam crazy guys keeping the trophies, ears, fingers, whatever. Durant takes us into his quote unquote business life of now he's keeping trophies of his victims, which is really fascinating. And then side note, anyone who knows me will remember that during my more exotic phase, I also went by the name Hung Fat.
Your exotic phase. I died because I backed it up and was like, did I hear that right?
I feel like at this point in movie making history, we're still not quite getting the names and the culture correctly. So you're just picking like what sounds like a cool name for like an Asian character, and still Hung Fat was not the right name for this guy.
You have to wonder if they were all giggling like schoolgirls because they thought it was so funny, or if they were completely clueless that is hysterical. Like,
or maybe they were fans of, I think it's 16 Candles with Long Dong Suck.
Long Duck Dong.
Long Duck Dong. Thank you. Long Duck Dong. I always get the two confused.
So the thing, though, that bothered me about this finger thing was that they were in a regular little velvet lined, like cigar box looking case. They were not in formaldehyde or any kind of preservative that would keep human fingers from decaying and rotting. They all looked fresh.
you have to kind of realize that at some point it's gonna smell a little bit ripe in there with these fingers rotting. So like, what are you gonna do with them at some point? Yeah,
Yes, they were not preserved.
Yeah, they should have done that a little bit better.
That was the one thing they could have done better. You're so funny. Outside, we see Peyton in a hat and coat with crisp, fresh white bandages, which I appreciated. He's eavesdropping on Durant's phone call with some equipment, some half-assed, not even looking like shit you buy at Radio Shack. It looks like he put this stuff together himself, and then he runs off after eavesdropping.
Well, he is a scientist.
Yes, he does do sciencey stuff. We've established that. Back at the lab, we see his bandages are now immediately filthy and tattered after he just had crisp white bandages 5 seconds ago.
To be fair, they are in LA. So this is like, between the smog and everything else, just walking out to probably get the mail, you come back feeling filthy.
I just feel like the continuity guy on shooting days was off at Starbucks or something himself. He was not paying attention. Continuity guy for this movie gets an F from me. You fail, buddy.
He gets an FU.
So we see Peyton is making a 3D face of Durant and practicing imitating his voice from the phone call he had recorded when he was eavesdropping. Okay, this is the shot where I really noticed, and I have to point this out. I'm not dogging on his appearance. I like me some Liam Neeson, God bless him. He does not have the best teeth in the world. If you see him from a profile, when he opens his mouth, his teeth are a very small row and they slant back into his mouth and they're not totally white. Same thing with his bottom teeth, a very tiny row of them, and they kind of bend like they're leaning backward into his mouth more. If they're not so straight, if you know what I mean. Okay, that's just a fact. That's just how his teeth are. So it is what it is. Okay, we get a shot now, a close-up of Peyton's face, all burnt, and his mouth is exposed, like his lips are burned off, and we get just his teeth are exposed. Giant, chiclet looking, perfectly straight, 2 full rows of these big old white teeth. These are not Liam Neeson's teeth. So are you trying to tell me that when he was burned beyond recognition, suddenly his teeth grew 5 sizes and were straight and really at the front of his... No. Movie, no.
I have no explanation for that. That bothered me as well, not the way it bothered you, because I didn't pay that close attention to Liam Neeson's teeth. I would like to apologize to Mr. Neeson, because it's like, dude, I also don't have white teeth, so I don't know why she's being so judgmental.
For the record, as humans, I don't think we should have perfectly white teeth. That's fine by me. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, for purposes of comparison, it's ridiculous to me, because also he has no lips on these perfectly, white teeth with his burned face. How is he able to pronounce and say certain words without lips? No, that bothered me. Okay, sir, let's further dissect.
Okay.
So Liam Neeson, mentioned earlier, very pronounced nose. His face is extremely like a certain shape and everything. He was burned horribly. When he puts on his face, his mask, he looks exactly perfect like himself. The nose is nice and large, like his normal nose. Is he building in a prosthetic fake bone piece to make the nose really big? Because there's no way his little burned face has a nose that big anymore. And then on top of that, let me blow your mind a little more. He puts on other people's faces. Liam Neeson's nose is much larger than some of these men's faces that he puts on. There's no way that his bone structure and his face shape supports looking exactly like another man. I've put on Halloween masks, they're loose, not him. He's putting on this tight fitting synthetic skin that would shape to his bone and his face shape. So he would look like Liam Neeson face shape underneath the skin, right? How does he just magically ignore his features and look like these other people?
Oh, there's a lot of problems with that. I mean, like the nose thing, yes, because like I said, if he doesn't have like a device in there to make it look like the bone is still there, then any breeze that comes by, that nose is going to be flopping in the wind. So that's that. I mean, that scene alone, I would love to see, just because it would crack my ass up. But then you go back to the fact that he's also mimicking these people. How is he able to mimic their voice? Like, when did this talent come into effect?
Apparently being horribly burned ups your other senses.
Yeah, it's like, okay, this is apparently he can now change the size of his body as well, between the shape, the height, everything. There are so many flaws in this movie.
It's ludicrous.
Yes, but I have a childlike innocence and can enjoy this stuff. I feel like you're hovering over this movie, just waiting for the mistake to happen and be like, oh, no, I'm taking that away from you. You can't have this movie.
If I pulled every scene that had something irritating in it, the movie'd be 4 minutes long. We wouldn't even have, it'd be as short. So Peyton puts on Durant's face, robs a convenience store, and makes sure to let the camera see him. And he leans in and says, I'm Robert Durant, and looks like him, sounds like him. It's all caught on camera. This was pretty fucking clever to me. This was slick. Of course, the police go to Durant's house and arrest him. He's like, what the hell's going on? They haul him in. Then we see Peyton as Durant with 2 henchmen driving to Hung Fats restaurant, which is not called Hung Fats, luckily.
I don't feel like anyone would actually go to a restaurant called Hung Fat. It would just be a little bit like, I don't know what I'm getting here.
They go inside and we see that he only has 9 hours left on his timer before his face will be unstable. So dumb. Inside, Peyton as Durant pressures Hung Fat, who says he has no money to give him, into agreeing to give him the money that he's been saying he doesn't have. He really does, by showing Hung Fat that he can run a flame under his hand and it doesn't faze him. This fake hand, we know it's fake. You can tell by looking at it, but it's supposed to be his hand running a flame under it. Ooh, lots of people can put their hand over a flame. Why is that going to pressure me into going, okay, I lied. I have money to give you.
It is intimidating, and I've been working on trying to do that myself. I've been trying to figure out how to keep the hand over the flame myself, and it is very, very difficult.
Well, you need to sever your nerves.
Well, I can't find a doctor. I've been trying to find her, just, But to me, the thing that bothered me with that was like, okay, if this skin does not last long in the light, wouldn't the heat from the fire also melt the skin?
Thank you. I was going to say that. Oh my God, I hate this movie so much.
I hate that you're making me pick apart this childhood memory of mine that I loved as a child. And now I'm just like, oh, fuck you, movie.
Okay, here's another one. We cut to Durant getting out on bail. They have him on video. How is he not immediately sent up the river? I don't understand. I don't work in the law field or the justice field, but I feel like that's weird.
Well, he didn't shoot the guy. And to be fair, this is probably a 7-Eleven. So these things get rolled on like an hourly basis. So it's probably like a fine at the best.
So he hops in a cab and rushes off to Hung Fat's place. He gets impatient and gets out of the cab and decides to run the rest of the way on foot, stiffs the driver, doesn't even pay the cabbie. I was so mad at him.
Well, he's a criminal. He's not going to pay that. I mean, like, this guy should be thanking like everything in the universe that he didn't just get shot in the back of the head and lose some fingers on the way, because it's an evil mastermind.
So now when he gets to Hung Fats, he is in this spinning revolving glass door and he sees himself on the other side, because out's coming, Peyton with the briefcase of money. They're confused, the henchmen, as to which one of them to shoot, which one's the real Durant. This scene was pretty funny to me because they spin around in the door a few times. Shoot him, he's Durant. No, shoot him, he's Durant. So that was funny to me. And it took me, I didn't go back and watch because I wasn't going to watch this again, but it took me until the end of the movie to realize, because I thought something was kind of weird. The blue eyes that Liam Neeson has and that Durant has are the same shade of blue, very similar. So they put contacts in Liam Neeson when he's supposed to be, when he's supposed to be Durant, to make his eyes look like a different shade of blue. So it's noticeable which one is which. I finally picked up on that at the end of the movie. And I was like, oh, they did that through the whole movie, I'm pretty sure, but I'm not going to go back and check.
That's interesting. I did not catch that. I will actually have to go back and do that because I still enjoy this movie despite your attempts to make me hate it.
Yeah, the Peyton version of Durant has these bright blue contacts in that are clearly not the same shade blue.
I agree with also the scene. I do like, because I love it in comedies and any movie when they do the twin thing and like, oh no, I'm the real this guy, I'm the real that guy. As campy as this movie is though, I would love to see, and I see it a lot in cartoons now, the scene where they go by the mirror and it's not really a mirror and they're doing that little like dance scene of like trying to match each other's movement. If you could have
I
thrown that in
love
this
it.
movie, it would have been so classic. It needed more camp. It really did.
So the Durants tussle. Peyton's face starts to bubble and smoke, so he grabs the briefcase of money and runs off. They chase him, but his face falls off and he gets away. So now we cut to a small fair or traveling carnival situation where Julie and Peyton are just throwing caution to the wind and just having a great time, laughing and riding the rides.
To me, her acting like that with the fun and stuff like that, that was her worst acting in the entire movie. I honestly did not believe that she was having fun in this movie at all.
I thought the same thing. I'm like, she is really laying it on thick here. So she says to him she wants to spend all day and night together. Peyton looks at his watch and says he has to get back to the hospital for his therapies. He can't do it. Sorry. She asks him why he's so uncomfortable with her, and he says he's going to tell her how he's changed. And just as he starts to talk some more, he gets interrupted by this carnival barker unveiling the mutant man. Come see the freak of nature. And Peyton gets triggered or something. And in his head, we get that weird visual bullshit to show he's triggered and feeling rage at the word freak.
I love the cheesiness of when he starts to lose his temper. It's just so beautiful.
So this freak guy is supposed to be, I guess, Lizard Man or something in the credits. This is actually Tony Gardner, who was the special effects and makeup man on the film.
I just read that before we started recording. I was just going to bring it up. I was trying to find him in IMDb cast.
Yeah, I thought that's fun. I like when they do that. Savini used to do that too.
There's a lot of like the Coens were in here as well. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Like when there's little like guest cameos of people that like you did not, and I did not notice them, but then I don't know what the Coens look like.
Hey, maybe that's where Frances and her husband met. Maybe was on this. I don't know. Okay. He says he wants to win her a stuffed animal, and then he has to run because he can't miss his sessions. So he says to her, he's not 100% cured yet, but he will be soon. The only thing I could think was, to him, he doesn't want to commit to fully being out and living life and being with her until he can make a skin that can last longer than 99 minutes in the daylight so that he can look like this all the time for her. Is that what his goal is?
That's kind of how I took it.
Because he doesn't say.
Yeah, you can interpret it many different ways. It could be like he wants to complete his revenge before he's ready to commit to her. He wants to overcome his anger issues. I took it as it was the skin. That was my interpretation. I mean, it could have been like he still hasn't broken up with Church yet.
Now, see, to me, I don't see this as the IMDb plot saying he wants to, his whole life goal now is to exact revenge on everybody that set him on fire. He's twice now set out to frame Durant, which he blames, but to steal money from him twice, at least, to further his cost of, he's buying goods from the back alley of a hospital. People are shipping equipment and he's got his equipment that he's funding, and he's doing all these things where he needs money. And obviously you just need money to live, to eat and whatever. So to me, this isn't some big revenge plot so much as he's just fucking them over because he can and taking their money because he needs it.
Yeah, I kind of feel like the revenge is like the secondary kind of goal.
Yes.
Like it wasn't his main goal. It was just, okay, I get to do this and get the money to further my research. But even then, it's like a good writer would come in and be like, well, okay, you can't just pick up your life as Peyton again, because eventually they're going to find out you're still alive and they're going to try and finish the job.
Yeah.
So ultimately, the revenge has to be like a main goal because you're going to have to kill Durant.
Yeah. So he tosses a ball at some stacked cans, a carnival game here, and he gets so angry that he knocks them down. And he says to the carny, I want that doll, that pink elephant. And the guy says, it doesn't count because you were across the line. You weren't behind the line. They argue about it. Peyton gets enraged beyond all reason. The carny calls him a weirdo, so he loses his shit. The carny touches his chest, like pokes him, which I don't like. So I totally was understanding where Peyton's coming from. He sees red, breaks the guy's fingers, throws him, grabs the elephant, shoves it at Julie, and says, "Take the fucking elephant."
I love that line. I actually wrote that in there. I absolutely love when he says, "Take the fucking elephant." There's a way he says it and everything is beautiful. And I was so satisfied when he beat the shit out of the carny, because how many of us have been annoyed by these people of like, they're always trying to screw us over when you're doing the games and everything.
I'm ashamed to admit I dated a carny at one point that was coming through, and he was nice. He wasn't like this at all.
There's a few I've dealt with that were like, they tried to screw you over. They rigged the game. I know they did. I'm not that bad at throwing darts, damn it.
Well, drunk you thinks you're better at throwing darts than sober you does, maybe.
Yeah, but drunk me also feels like I can dance on a tabletop in a Speedo and get away with it, and that's never worked out either.
So he holds his face as it's bubbling now and says, "Please forgive me," and he runs off. So Julie chases him, follows him to his abandoned building. Inside, Peyton is hiding and watching Julie find his setup. She even sees a synthetic face on the counter melting. She yells, because she assumes he's listening to her, "You could have told me the truth. I could have helped you. Why aren't you opening up to me?" He looks like shit. Just the expression in the side and how they're showing his face is ridiculous. His hands aren't that bad. He pulls his hands into frame and you can just see like a couple blisters on his hands. Now, I was wondering, is he still wearing synthetic hands, but they just haven't melted yet?
I kind of took it at that because like his hands should have looked a lot worse, because we saw the damage to his hands when they first tried to kill him. The scene when he's working on the computer and you see like the one hand with the glove where it's his normal hand, and then the one hand where it's like all creepy and it's got the traditional Sam Raimi special effects. So yeah, the hands were off. I assumed it was he did not take off the synthetic skin yet.
So this is the shot where I'm going to share it on social media. I paused it and took a good close-up shot of it up with my phone. We zoom in on his face and you get to see his full mouth without anything hiding it. This is supposed to be his now what he looks like, burned with the teeth exposed, the no lips, the whole. And to me, this was Bad Ash from Army of Darkness.
I could see that easily.
And then the way it barely moves when he's talking, totally Bad Ash from Army of Darkness. I was like, oh my God, it looks exactly the same, his mouth. So I'll share that so that you can agree with me when you see it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the comparison, because I could definitely tell. I think he reuses a lot of the same stuff in his movies. Evil Dead, Army of Darkness, throw Darkman in there. I think he reuses a lot of the same effects and designs and things.
All right, here we go. Back to Strack. Okay, this is where I'm going to have some more beef.
All right.
To brace yourself. Cut to Julie in Strack's office. She's breaking it off with him, saying we can't see each other anymore. Tells him Peyton is back and alive. He gets distracted by a phone call. On his desk, where they are standing and talking, and she's now sitting, is an open briefcase where she sees the memo with the coffee stain. He says, "I'm sorry you had to find that." Why didn't you close the case when she got there? What is happening?
Okay,
this guy's a fucking idiot.
Okay, there's that on top of the fact of how did she not? I mean, didn't they already discuss the memo? Didn't they already discuss the fact that Durant was working for him? She should have already kind of pieced together the fact that this guy has been behind the whole thing from the get-go. And now the connection of finding the exact note that they've been discussing for the entire movie is the light bulb over the head moment of, oh shit, he's the bad guy.
Yes, she just right this second puts two and two together. He agrees with her in her assumption that he's behind the lab and everything. He says to her, yes, I paid someone to do it. His name is Robert. What are you doing? He needs Villain 101 as a course at the community college because he's just giving it all away.
Yeah, like we discussed before, these villains need to hire better henchmen. Now where it's like, okay, this is where you need to kind of like, you need to learn. I mean, at least be like, an intern for like another villain somewhere,
Yes.
Intern for Thanos or something like that. So that way you can kind of get the ropes of how to be a good supervillain.
She asks, well, now that I have seen that you have the memo and you've admitted you're behind everything, I suppose you're going to kill me now. He says no, because you've got nothing on me and the police are paid off. So he's not feeling like she's a threat. He shows her the view from his window of all those buildings for his city of the future that are under construction outside. And he says to her, we're building the city of the future, you and I, or whatever. And I'm like, have you got a mouse in your pocket, sir? Because I'm pretty sure she's not in on this with you.
He is pretty damn delusional at this point. So I'm sure he's thinking like, no, I'm definitely going to end up tapping that ass. But at the same time, it's like, this explains why he is so nonchalant with giving away like, oh yeah, no, I did this. I don't care, because he's got the cops in his pocket. Like, no one's going to stop him. Like, is there suddenly going to be some burnt scientist with rubber masks that's going to come and save the day? Surely that won't happen.
So Julie leaves. Strack immediately calls for Durant. He tells Robert Julie has uncovered their alliance. Okay, wait a hot second. Julie didn't uncover shit, bro. You went on a rant and told her she didn't know about Durant at all.
No, but that's just typical lying within the business employee relationship. All relationships have that little white lie.
Well, I just thought it was funny. He's the choice of wording. She's uncovered our alliance.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I'm simply making excuses for shitty writing. Like, that's all this is.
I mean, Durant is his paid hitman, basically. Durant works for him. He's on the payroll. There's no alliance.
No, but at the same time, it's like Durant is not the kind of guy you probably want to piss off. I mean, I feel like Durant is doing him a favor by letting him pay him to do things that he would do just for fun. Like, at any point, you expect at some point Durant to just be like, nah, I'm done. I just want to kill you now.
So he further explains that he now knows Peyton is alive and Durant needs to take care of him. All you got to do is follow Julie. She'll take us right to him. And sure enough, she does. Cut to Julie outside that abandoned lab. She's looking up at the window and he's in the window all bandaged, looking down. Suddenly, 2 cars come pulling up. Men with guns open fire at Peyton in the window. He yells, Julie.
Yeah, I was gonna say, first off, the Julie part. The Julie.
I'm so sick of her name.
I lose this every single time with that. He does that shit. I totally had flashbacks, and I don't know why. I mean, I've seen this movie so many times, but when the cars pull in, all this shit's going on, I had friggin' flashbacks to RoboCop.
Really?
Yeah, because it goes to the scene of like RoboCop, like after you're getting the shit kicked out of him, and then all the bad guys come into the chemical warehouse, and then they do have the big gunfight and everything in this whole like area. I don't know why it made me think of that, but like immediately after watching this movie, I was like, I want to go watch RoboCop now.
You know, I haven't seen that in probably 20 plus years, so couldn't really tell you much about it. So as they're shooting at Peyton now, some of these guys grab Julie, shove her into one of the cars, and they take off. So then all that's left behind is Spicoli and this one other henchman with dark hair. They open fire inside the building, blasting everything to shit. Peyton puts on his hat and coat and runs up to the roof.
Well, yeah, you want to be fashionable when you're shot at. I mean, I know no one wants to die looking like shit.
Peyton is ambushed on the roof by a helicopter carrying Durant and another henchman. They open fire on him. Durant took me a minute to see what he was holding. He's firing these big ass explosive, I don't know what you call it.
It was a grenade launcher.
Grenade launcher?
It's a grenade launcher.
Fucking explosions every time he's shooting.
This ties back to the where they said that there was a possible like him being in the military or something, because they said like the way that he was able to handle a grenade launcher, because not every jackass on the street is going to be able to pick up a grenade launcher and start shooting it. So there's obviously some
I thought that too. I was like, that's very weird he would have that, but if we got the backstory, it would make sense.
Yeah, this is where we needed the backstory of Durant.
So they continue to fire on Peyton as he runs across the roof, narrowly escaping numerous explosions, one right after the other. He goes back inside and he says to nobody, "You gotta be shitting me." Then the 2 henchmen bust back in, Spicoli and this other guy, they open fire just willy-nilly, blowing everything up. Don't even see where he's at.
They're terrible. Like I said, that's the bad thing about henchmen is that if they don't know what they're doing, you're not going to get to kill the hero. So they've got to learn.
I want results, man. Don't just be blowing shit up for the hell of it.
No, yeah, because like you just randomly open fire in any place whatsoever. It's like, yeah, there's a 50-50 shot you could kill the guy, but you're going to do a lot better if you know where you're aiming.
So one of them uncovers an area where Peyton has his face skin masks just hanging, looking like Texas Massacre up in here.
I thought the same thing, but it was like a PG version of Texas Massacre because it felt like it was supposed to be creepy, but it just kind of looked corny.
And yes, and for a second, I was like, wait, how could he have all these faces? And then I was like, oh, because they're in the dark. I get it. And the third one, if you look at it, the third one looks like Bruce Willis.
Oh, it did, didn't it?
It does. It looks like Bruce Willis. I was cracking up. So the henchmen now split up, and one of them gets attacked by Peyton. Then we cut to Spicoli getting surprised by a man that runs up to him looking just like him. We get two Spicolis. So he knocks him to the ground, removes the mask, and sees Peyton's face underneath, and he's making noise. He's going, but he's not talking. And it's like, oh, okay, I know what's going on here. As an audience, you know, how this guy doesn't catch on immediately, but we do. So he shoots him. And then he takes off the mask, and it's the other henchman guy with his mouth taped shut. Not to our surprise.
Oh yeah, there was no like surprise scene in this movie. It was blatantly obvious, especially because like you could see the friggin' tape. Like when he was talking, it looked like he was taped anyway. So
Spicoli looks up and sees someone wearing his face, looking right back at him again. Now, obviously, this is Peyton, who knocks out the real henchman and runs off after Durant. So he gets to the chopper, he grabs Durant, but it starts to take off. So instead of leaving so we can have this whole big fight scene, it just hovers over the top of the building. It doesn't leave, right? It's just hanging. I was like, well, this is so stupid.
Well, they had to make sure they had him, like tied up to the anchor and everything. I'm sure that was just like bad editing again. I do want to go back, like when you saw the two Spicoli guys, did you get the same feeling? Like were you amazed by how well that guy was acting when he started to kind of like act crazy? He just kind of acted batshit crazy. I can't even explain the way it was, like the expressions on his face, everything. Like that guy, for being a bit part actor, blew my fucking mind with how well he played that part.
What blew my mind was the luxuriousness of his hair. He had beautiful hair.
Oh no, it was absolutely gorgeous. But I mean, like, this is what happens when you use conditioner and like really take care of it. Yeah.
Even henchmen got to look their best. Speaking of henchmen, Peyton grabs the one next to Durant and tosses him out of the helicopter. Durant is now kicking at Peyton to get him to let go. They tussle. We go back inside and see that the building is wired to blow. And Spicoli finds flammable gas leaking from tanks. Getting a little bit of a flashback here. He sees a hologram of the lighter that could get ignited at any moment with that little chicken device that bobs, same as earlier. Apparently this was something you could buy at every store. Every Sharper Image sold these or something, because he's got one.
Everyone has to have one. I mean, it's well, plus he had one in his old lab, so I'm sure it was a thing of, it's like, this is a special thing to him. It brings him joy.
Yeah, it's his signature collectible.
Exactly. Everyone's got to have that one thing that's like the prize piece in their collection.
So back at the chopper, Durant pulls Peyton's face off, revealing his bandaged head. Okay, so now back to my argument from earlier, my rant from earlier. He had this skin over all these bandages, and yet he had a perfectly formed Liam Neeson structure face. No, movie. Just no.
Maybe it was within the mask, though.
You can't save that for me. Absolutely not. Under all those bandages, no. So Peyton loses his grip and grabs a hook on a rope that is now hanging from the helicopter. Spicoli is watching in horror as the lighter ignites and the building explodes. Peyton hangs on to the chopper as it flies away, and Durant tells the pilot to shake him off. And not in a good Taylor Swift kind of way. The stunt work here is really cool.
It really was. I always love helicopter scenes in movies like this because they're just so much fun to watch. I mean, they're not as great action wise as they could be, like, you know, like not as cool as a car chase scene, but they're still just a lot of fun to watch.
Well, they're really flying between buildings and like swinging this stunt man, and it looks really fucking perilous. Like, I'm scared for the guy.
Oh yeah, no, the stunt work on this is really cool. Going back to this is practical effects. This is actual stunt people having to do this shit.
Okay, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. They're swinging him around. Right, the other shoe is going to drop. They're swinging him around. This scene is looking good. The movie kind of has me back on its side for a minute here with this great scene. He gets slammed into a window of a high-rise building. So in the middle of a building, he's slammed into a window. I think that they think this is supposed to be funny. This is funny to them. He slams in the window and interrupts a meeting in progress, business people doing their business. And he just goes, "Excuse me." And then he gets pulled right back out by the rope. That is not possible. There is no way this helicopter swings him flat into a window face front like that and then pulls him back out. The momentum, the copter is going. This is not possible.
It's not possible at all. I agree. I enjoy the scene. The scene makes me laugh because I'm childish and, you know, I laugh at all sorts of stupid stuff. At the same time, it's like, I don't have a problem with the possibility of this happening because of the fact that we literally saw him fly out of an exploding building on fire. So it's like, at that point, I was like, all bets are off in anything being realistic in this movie whatsoever.
So there are two choppers in this chase scene now because a police copter has shown up. They tell Durant, set your chopper down and put the man down, basically. Durant's response to this is to open fire on the police and blow their helicopter up. So at this point, he's lost his fucking mind because he's gone beyond kill Peyton. He's gone to, I don't care if I spend the rest of my life in jail. For killing police officers and blowing up their helicopter. I mean, this asshole's out on bail.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. But it kind of also goes back to a lot of the shit of like, okay, the police are supposed to be in the pockets of the bad guys. So why did Durant end up in jail to begin with? And then now why are the cops invested? So it's like, how exactly bought are these cops? Like, how paid for are they?
So now the copter lowers Peyton into oncoming traffic on a freeway where he runs across the top of a semi-truck. Looney Tunes level.
Yeah, I literally giggled at that scene. And I don't giggle. I chuckle. I don't giggle.
Well, what got me was they thought they were being funny, clearly. And this scene is laughable, but not because it's funny. It's because it's so asinine.
I think what hurts it is the fact that it's what we said. They cannot make up their mind of what direction they're going in this movie. Because there's like, you go to Army of Darkness and there's so many ridiculous scenes in that movie. But the movie has that tone of like, you're supposed to laugh at it. You're supposed to have a good time.
From beginning to end.
Yeah. And this one, it jumps all over the place that it makes it hard to figure out, are you supposed to be laughing or not?
So while he's running across the semi-truck and flying through traffic, Durant is shooting down at him, trying to hit him, causing all kinds of accidents and no doubt deaths of civilians that are just in their cars driving on the highway. It's ridiculous. Peyton lands on another truck and attaches the hook from the copter to a handlebar looking pole that just happens to be on top of this particular truck. And he yells up to Durant, "Kiss your ass goodbye," leaps off the truck as it goes into a tunnel, causing the helicopter to slam into an overpass and exploding. Durant is on this copter. I feel like justice is served. He got what he deserved. It's a good death.
Yeah, no, it was a glorious death. I absolutely love the way that he went out. There is an issue I have with this scene that comes up later on.
Cut to now, fake Durant, meeting Strack, who has Julie at the City of the Future construction site after dark. And again, if you watch the eyes, Larry Drake has in these really bright blue contacts, so you can tell it's fake Durant. What I didn't understand was how he still had Durant face, because he blew his lab all to shit. Where was he stashing Durant face?
Well, I mean, even though his last lab was blown to shit, and he still, computers and all kinds of things survived. So it's like I'm sure his lab equipment was fine because apparently this stuff is like fucking indestructible. I was more worried about where the hell the damn cat was at. Did the cat survive? This is an answer to the like. I need the writers tell me, did the cat survive this movie? Because I'm worried about that cat.
After we end here today, you're going to write a firmly worded email to Sam Raimi, like, how dare you kill Church?
Exactly. I mean, it's like, I guess it's, not like he couldn't come back. I mean, we'll just put him in the pet cemetery. So,
right. He's our connection in the turkey verse because we did cover Pet Cemetery. All right. So Durant, Strack, and Julie go up in this lift elevator type situation on this barely constructed building, 650 feet into the air, where a henchman is waiting to greet them and grab a hold of Julie, who has her hands handcuffed. So Strack and the henchman have guns as well. They walk across these beams, these exposed beams, with the wind blowing. It is a harrowing situation. I do not like it at all.
I'm terrified of heights, one of my many fears. So yeah, like watching that stuff does tend to make me a little bit nervous.
Are you afraid of heights or are you just afraid of falling from them? Because there's a difference.
See, that's the tough part. I can't say because it's like, as much as I am afraid of heights, I actually want to go skydiving. I would actually love to try that at some point.
Okay, so you and I will go do it because I want to do it too.
It would be a blast. And I think it would be the ultimate way to overcome your fear of heights, especially because one way or the other, you're going to get over it.
Yeah, you're going down whether the chute works or not.
Exactly. So you're either going to get over it because you survived or because you didn't.
So they're walking across these beams, and I am dying a little on the inside as the wind blows them from side to side. And he does exposition dump about, in case we weren't sure how to feel about Strack, he's just seemed like an egomaniac, dirty businessman at this point, right? Now we're going to find out how evil he actually is. He's evil.
Yeah. I kind of feel like at this point, you see him go from being the businessman douchebag to actually being the villain.
Yes, he wants us to know how evil he actually is. So he exposition dumps that he had his wife killed for business purposes, and that he used to work on a construction site like this when he was younger. So he is not afraid to wander around on these beams, and how explains they're 650 feet in the air. And we even get a shot that pans the building to show just how high they are. And it lands at the bottom, street level. We see a row of rebar spikes, like a whole bunch of them, like a bed of nails just sticking out of the ground. And my mind went, oh shit, why are they showing us that unless somebody's gonna fall and land on it? Yes, movie, yes.
My mind went to a totally different place. I don't remember what I thought when I saw it as a kid, probably the same thing you thought. My mind now went to like, oh shit, this is that level in Mortal Kombat where when you do the uppercut, they fall into the pit of spikes.
Yes, in some way, you're like, this is foreshadowing and it's clearly gonna pay off, right?
It has to pay off.
So the quick turn to me of Strack going from shady businessman of questionable morals to a completely crazy nut job murderer is ludicrous. And I'm guessing that it's just so that we will feel a sense of hell yeah when he dies. Because at this point, he's acting off the rails. He's walking around on one foot, balancing, yelling. He's so crazy. Oh, this is just a crazy bad guy.
His character felt a little out of place to me. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Spider-Man 3. You watch that movie and you feel like the character of Venom is just forced into the movie. Like he wasn't supposed to be there. It was just supposed to be the Sandman and Harry Osborn as the Green Goblin, and Venom just got thrust into that. I feel like this is the same problem with this movie, was that Durant is supposed to be the villain, the bad guy. That's who it is. You spend the entire movie building Durant up as this evil guy. And we get a few scenes here and there with Strack, and it's like, you're not doing it, dude. You're not the bad guy. I just don't feel like you are. And so now we got to compensate with him going overboard evil.
Yes, they want to lay it on thick for us.
Oh, and it is super thick.
So Strack tricks Durant into saying he has kids, which the real Durant does not. He unmasks Peyton and asks Julie who the real monster is now. as Strack and Peyton dangle precariously. The wind is blowing them around on this metal beam. It's so dumb.
The only thing I kind of liked about this scene was I do love the fact that Neeson's kind of playing like, okay, Peyton's not comfortable up on these bars. He's having difficulty. So I kind of like that as like this whole movie, he went from being a boring ass scientist to an action hero, which is like, how the fuck did that happen? Because like this guy went from like seriously just the nerd to being, like Bruce Willis in Die Hard right now.
Yes. And every time he attacks somebody, have you noticed, and he does it again here in a few minutes, it's always from above. The camera looks up and it's a shot of Peyton coming down at you with his jacket flapping in the wind.
I kind of feel like, is that supposed to be like the Batman thing? Like Batman
Yes.
coming down from the rafters and shit. And like, it's just so much going on in this movie that sometimes it's hard to process.
So Strack is now very boringly monologuing as he and Peyton hop around on these beams. Finally, Strack says Peyton should be working for him, and he'll even throw in Julie to sweeten the deal. Strack turns to see Peyton is gone from behind him now. Suddenly, Peyton falls onto him from above. He looks up.
Spider monkey attack.
They fall onto a platform below them that just appears out of nowhere because a minute ago it was all beams. So now there's the safe platform for them to fall on. The henchman with Julie opens fire on Peyton. Julie pushes him, which I liked, but he's fine. He falls onto a beam and grabs the beam and pulls himself up, only to toss Julie off next. Oh my God, I died laughing.
The only thing I would have loved before we get to the next part that just kind of bothers me, I would have loved it if the guy that was shooting would have been Hoppy. I would love to have seen Hoppy up there just bouncing up and down on the beams. That just would have been amazing.
So explain the logistics of this next part to me.
This is the part that I have an issue with as well.
Oh, all right. So you're on board.
I'm totally on board.
So her hands are cuffed in front of her body. Never cuff a perp in front, as Mike always says. It's very irritating in movies when they do that. But she's cuffed in the front. She's falling, and her hands are up over her head. And she lands on this little cluster of these rebar beams that are poles that are sticking out off the building a few feet. Her hands are above her head. She's hanging from the beams. Two things. Number one, how is that even physically, logistically possible for her to fall in such a manner around the beams, but yet her hands make it back up over the beams? She would have landed like sitting on the beams. That
is literally what I wrote down, was how the hell did she get caught on the bars without getting split in half?
Yes.
The only thing I can figure out, like, is it she's falling and then her hands go back? But even then, it's like, how is she not swaying? It's like nothing physically makes sense.
It's just not possible, which is what I find myself saying throughout this entire movie. This is not possible.
No, I mean, up until this point, like I said, you have me. Like him exploding out of the building I was like, okay, that's possible. Maybe that can happen. A man surviving and being burnt and having this rage issue and not feeling pain, that's possible, I guess. Like maybe this can happen. I don't know. My
other issue with her doing this, I don't know if you've ever worn handcuffs. I've never been arrested, but I have had cuffs on a time or two, I will say. If they're on fairly tight, which you would assume they are for her because she's a prisoner, and her hands are on this pole with the force of her body weight, the force of falling several stories before she catches, wouldn't that have just ripped her hands right the fuck off through these cuffs?
I would assume so. I mean, she looks like she's like, what, at the least, maybe $120, $125. I'm probably being generous to this woman. So yeah, you've got that weight, the speed you're going down, you're only being held on by like just your hands. On top of the fact of like, even if it wasn't her hands getting ripped off at that force, the tiny metal that keeps those cuffs together is not strong enough that it would survive that. I would assume that would break as well. That's what I'm saying. Like logistically, none of this makes any sense. This would not even happen. If it made sense, then we wouldn't have a movie to rip apart. True. Then you enjoy this so much. I can just see the joy in your face as you're just feasting on the flesh of this movie. Ravenous. So Peyton looks over and sees that she's hanging there kind of in his peripheral vision as he's fighting with Strack. The henchman somehow from above sends a hook and pulley swinging at Peyton, trying to knock him down.
And then several of them start swinging and flinging around because Strack is also doing it, sending these flying at Peyton. What I don't understand is how there's so many of them on this building at this exact place that they need them. I'm no construction worker. I've never been on a construction site, but I'm finding it hard to believe that there'd be that many of them that high up, those hook things. What are they used for? I don't know.
I believe they're there to raise the beams up so they can be bolted together to make the frame of the building. I am not a construction worker either, but I have played enough video games. This is possible.
Oh my God, all those years of video game playing have finally paid off.
Exactly.
You have answers for me. The thing that made me laugh out loud, I really did go, ha ha, when he said it, was the henchman going, "You're going down, burn head." You don't have to be witty to be a villain, but that's pretty funny though.
The campy jokes in this movie sometimes can just make you laugh.
So of course, Peyton grabs a hold of one of these hooks and manages to hook the henchman's pants somehow. And then Strack shoots at Peyton with a bolt gun. Is that what that is?
Yeah, it's a bolt gun.
Causing him to lose his grip and drops the henchman, who, and cut away. No payoff landing on the rebar beams below. I was so sad, but I was like, okay, it's not for him. They're saving it for the slam bang death for Strack. Got it, movie. Got it. Okay. So then Strack shrugs when he sees the henchman fall. He's like, meh.
Yeah, obviously he doesn't care about his people. I mean, the guy killed his wife. He's batshit crazy at this point, so whatever.
And he is also 3 feet in front of Peyton. We see this because the camera does a long shot. He is right in front of him, firing at him minimum 3 times with this bolt gun and does not hit him. Peyton backs into a beam and a bolt sticks his hand to the beam. He gets shot finally. This guy's a terrible shot. He was right in front of him.
Yeah, well, now we know why he didn't continue to work on construction sites, because he just can't shoot shit. So
So Strack starts talking about Julie and says that she doesn't date freaks. Oh no, that's the trigger word. Peyton sees red and of course pulls his hand right off of that bolt because he doesn't feel it because his nerves have been severed. And he begins punching the shit out of Strack. He hears Julie screaming because she's slipping and he's yelling, "Julie!" I am so sick of that name now.
yeah, like I said, now every time I hear the name Julie, I just picture him yelling Julie, and it makes me laugh and it makes me cry a little on the inside too.
So she slips and falls, and Peyton swings on a hook on a rope like Tarzan, safely grabs her mid-air. They land on a platform. All is well. During this time, Strack is firing bolts at them. It is ridiculous.
It's like, dude, you couldn't hit him when he was 3 feet away from you. What makes you think you're going to be able to hit him now? Distance is not your friend.
Peyton swings at Strack, missing him. Peyton kicks Strack, who, with the force that he kicks him, should have been launched because he's swinging right at him, and the momentum, and he kicks Strack. He should have flown. He does not. He barely falls so that Peyton can grab his ankle and hold him upside down over this beam. He should have been launched. I was so distressed by this. Physics is not working right in this movie at any point.
No, but I mean, no, logic doesn't work in this movie. So physics is probably checking out as well. Like, no, we'll just take a vacation.
So Strack taunts Peyton, basically saying he knows he won't drop him. He says, "You wouldn't be able to live with yourself, so I know you won't drop me." Peyton, of course, drops him and says to himself and us, the audience, "I'm learning to live with a lot of things." Strack, we hear him start to fall. Cut to dawn now breaking. Julie and Peyton are in an elevator heading down. Where was my slam bang death for Strack? This villain that you had to ramp up his villainy and make him so evil we fucking hate him for murdering his wife. And we do not get a glorious death scene. This movie's rated R.
It was either too gruesome or too expensive to film, or something must have happened. Like, maybe there is a cut out there that has this in it. I have no idea. I was disappointed too. Like, you want to see that. Like, you don't even have to see him hit. I don't have to see him actually like land. But like even just a shot of them coming down, walking away, and then like pan, and then you just see like the body laying there with all the spikes sticking out. Something would have been nice to acknowledge the continuity of this.
So in the elevator, he's saying he's a monster. He's learned to live with it now. And a life together for them is not possible, even though Julie says she wants to try. He throws a face mask and a wig on and runs off saying Peyton is gone. So my question is, Julie is now running after him. It's morning time. The construction site below now, street level, is hopping, super busy. People are doing their jobs. People are in the street, walking by, crowd. He loses her in a crowd. Has nobody seen the 2 dead bodies of the henchman and Strack? Why are there no police? Why is nothing happening about this?
Okay, that is the easiest explanation in the world. It's LA. I mean, I'm pretty sure you can't walk out of a McDonald's without hitting a dead body in LA. So I'm almost positive that this is a regular occurrence in this city.
It was so annoying that not only did we not get a glorious death scene that they were going to foreshadow with the rebar, we don't even get to see the aftermath. No police presence. Nobody finds the dead bodies. Nothing.
It does have kind of a subpar ending, except for the
You
fact
think?
that, except for the glorious cameo that we get.
Don't you feel let down? I know you like this movie, but don't you feel let down by that?
I mean, I don't care about the cops showing up because it's like, the cops aren't gonna they didn't really have much of a I can't speak. They didn't have much of a police presence to begin with in the movie. So like the cops weren't really involved. So that didn't bother me. But the unsatisfying death, yeah, that did bother me because you did try to play this character up as very evil, complete scumbag. You want to see the payoff of the death. So that does bother me a lot. I was disappointed there.
We hear a voiceover of Peyton saying, as Julie's looking through the crowd for him, I'm everyone and I'm no one. And then we see Bruce Campbell, cameo, looking back at Julie through a crowd. So obviously this is a face that Peyton has put on, where he got this face to feed into the hologram machine and make. Who knows?
Yeah, it's like at some point did he just start like randomly taking pictures of people and
on
like,
the street?
Yeah, just like that, which is a creepy in and of itself. It's like he's just standing outside somebody's window, being like, "Yeah, that's it, baby. That's it. That's the face I want to wear."
I feel like that's probably in the Darkman porn that exists on the dark web somewhere. So we see the Bruce Campbell guy looking back at Julie, and we hear more voiceover. He's everywhere and he's nowhere. And then Bruce turns and walks away. And then we hear the voice say, "Call me Darkman." Cut to black. Roll credits, the end.
That is the glorious Darkman. Try as you will to make me hate this movie. And I saw how much you tried. I still cannot hate this movie. I love it too much. I appreciate the stupidity of it. I've grown to love stupidity in movies so much now, so I can handle it. But yeah, right. There's a lot of flaws. I'm not gonna deny you your joy.
Thank you. I'm just pointing out the facts, man.
I mean, you are, but at the same time, it's like I kind of feel like you're just the person like going through like movie life support. Like these movies are barely hanging on as is, and you're just pulling the plug on these movies. Like, die, you son of a bitch.
Nailed it. All right, so this was your pick. So question 1 is, why do you hate me? No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. Seriously though, question 1, did you see the 2 sequels that came after this? And what are your thoughts? We've got Darkman 2 from 1995, The Return of Durant, and Darkman 3 from 96, Die, Darkman, Die. Did you see either of those, and what do you think?
It's been years since I've seen them. So yes, I've seen them. I haven't just seen them. I own the VHS of both of them. I have them. I don't know if I have the DVDs. I got to get the DVDs because I just love Darkman. I love the concept, everything about it.
Do you remember who plays Darkman in both of those movies?
Yes, I cannot pronounce his name, but I do know who it is. It is the man who plays the mummy in the Brendan Fraser Mummy movies.
Arnold Vosloo.
Yes.
I love him.
I do too. And I thought he did a good job taking over for Neeson. I mean, like you cannot replace Neeson because Liam Neeson has to play this character because of the campiness of it. But he did a good job. My issue with it was obviously Durant returning.
It's in the title. Yeah, the return of Durant. I was curious. I put on, after I was done with Darkman, the first 10 minutes, and then I fast forwarded through a lot, and then I watched the last 5 minutes of both of these sequels because I'd never seen them. Yes, Durant returns.
And it's not possible. I mean, I'm glad he came back because obviously you needed him as the villain. Strack couldn't do it. He couldn't cut as the villain. It was Durant's movie for the villain.
Bringing him back, he's laying in a bed in his house with hospital equipment and a doctor, and his henchmen come running in and they're like, he's awake. 2.5 years. He's been in a coma, I guess, in his house, and he just sits up and goes, and he's fine, and nothing's wrong with him physically.
Yeah,
you were dead, sir.
Yeah, no one is surviving. I mean, the only way he could have survived is he would have to have fallen out of the helicopter before the explosion. Possible because of the terrible editing of the movie to begin with. So yes, you would have explained that away.
We didn't see him fall out. Yes.
Yeah, but it's still at the same time, it's like it's not like he fell out over the water. He fell out over a freeway, so his ass is getting hit by a car. So in some way or another, there's going to be some physical damage to this man.
So the thing that cracked me up was the beginning of the movie, the second one, they're replaying all the clips from how the lab was destroyed and how he got turned into Darkman in the first film. And there are some shots with Liam Neeson, you can tell. And then there are some shots where they reenacted a scene and they have Arnold Vosloo, like when he's crawling on the floor, half burnt, gonna try to, before the lab explodes. And it's him in like burn makeup crawling on the floor. It's so stupid.
I literally only have them because I love Darkman so much. Like everything I have that's Darkman, I even have the comic books. Marvel did the 6-issue comics and stuff. I have that, and it's terrible. It's not good, but I have it because I love the character.
So both of these sequels, Sam produced, Raimi, and they had different writers, and the same director did both of the movies. So the 2 and 3 are very similar. Again, I put on 3, watched the first 10, 15 minutes, fast forwarded, watched the last 5. Jeff Fahey is doing his best Goodfellas impression as the villain in the third one. It is B movie goodness from him.
Like I said, it's like if you don't like the first one, you're not going to like the others. It's not.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so it's like it's not something that you're going to enjoy. You just have to basically love bad movies.
Oh, he has an underground lair in the subway tunnel system where he has his own little ride that he's on to zip through the tunnels that alerts him when a train is coming so he can veer off to a different track to get out of the way. It's so stupid.
Oh yeah, no, they basically went for it as far as like campiness with the sequels. It's like they try. I feel like they tried with the first one to kind of like, they couldn't decide serious, campy. What do we do? They just went like, no, we know what we're doing with 2 and 3, and they did not hold back. I got to go back and watch them now.
All right. So question 2, because this movie is so dated to watch, especially, do you think in an era when Hollywood has no fresh ideas and they're rebooting and remaking everything, that they should give this one a look? Should they try to reboot or remake Darkman?
Easily, yes. Hands down, yes. We've already got the Evil Dead remake. So I say go for it. I mean, technology has advanced to the point that like even him just being a scientist would make a lot more sense. There's a lot more stuff you could do with this. Don't know who the hell you would cast to play Darkman.
Nicolas Cage, obviously.
I mean, if you're going to go serious, then no, keep Nicolas Cage away from this movie.
I'm kidding. Yeah.
I will watch.
Make him the villain.
Oh yeah. Make him the villain. I mean, there's so much possibility.
I mean, I feel like, yeah, it can only be an improvement. Anything they do could only be an improvement, in my opinion.
I could. I mean, I kind of feel like I don't think they will, because I believe even Raimi himself has distanced himself from this movie.
As he should.
No, even the stuff you don't like, you gotta just own it and be like, yeah, I did this, I made my mistakes, now I'm better, and there's fans that love it, so you gotta embrace us.
I'm not shitting on people that like it. I'm shitting on the product. I do not like this movie at all. In fact, it's probably one of maybe the worst movie I've ever sat all the way through. Because when I've come across worst movies in my life, like terrible, like House Shark, I will turn them off after 10 minutes, whatever. I sat all the way through this. So I feel like I can say this is probably the worst movie I've ever seen. Because I did watch it all the way through.
I can understand why you hated it. I do. I can understand. And
I hope so. We just talked about it for 2+ hours.
Now I understand why the universe put us together for this, because I am the fans' justification to torture you with these movies for you talking so much shit about them. I am the sword of justice.
Yes, we balance each other out. All right, question 3. So we know where Darkman winds up because there are sequels. We know where Durant winds up. He gets killed in the second one. But where are they now with some of the other people? I wanted to ask you, what became of Ted Raimi and Dan Hicks characters? You say in the version you saw, Ted gets killed.
Yes, he does die. I vividly remember the scene. He takes Peyton takes him into the sewer. It was right after the party. Takes him into the sewer, and there's an amazing scene. And you've got to find this cut just for this scene alone. Lifts him up out of the sewer, and you see the cheesy, like, he's being lifted by a device because he's moving around and shaking, and gets run over by a semi truck. You don't see it, but you hear the crunch and squish of the wheels hitting his body.
I have no idea. So in my mind, he doesn't die, because in my version, that didn't happen. So my question was going to be to you, these two buddy henchmen, what became of them? So the surviving henchmen, Durant's dead. They have no boss. What did they do with the rest of their life?
I'm going to assume that maybe, let's go with a bosom buddy situation. Maybe they just got an apartment together, or let's go with two broke girls. Of, like, you lost your income, your boss is dead, there's nothing you can do. Where are you gonna go? Fuck it, we're gonna open a restaurant, bakery, something's going on, and they're just out there living their lives. Maybe they've fallen in love.
All right. So I picture that they had a bunch of money from Durant's estate because he didn't have a family or kids. So they come into all this money. They go ahead and open a pizza parlor together as a front, though, for the real operation, which is being a limo driver and getaway driver for the other criminal enterprises in town. That's how they make their living.
That is not where I thought I was going. I thought you were going to go with two guys, a girl, and a pizza place.
No, they got to have the dirty business and then the legit business as the front, see? And why not pizza?
Hey, my version could have had a dirty business too, but we can't discuss that on air.
So what became of Strack's company? Because he's dead and he didn't have a wife. He killed her. So no wife and kids. So what became of his company?
Okay, this one I'll go a little more serious, because the other one I had no friggin' idea. I was just pulling that answer out of my ass. This one I'm going to assume, like, there's someone obviously has to take over. There has to be investors of some kind. So I'm assuming the plan still happens. Peyton and Julie did not stop anything from happening. This waterfront thing is still going to go through. I don't know where it would have went, because, like, obviously there's some bodies being buried, things going to get uncovered, but the justification is, well, Strack's already dead, so who do you blame?
So I assume the board comes in and they swap a few letters and they are now Stark Industries, and we know where that goes.
Okay, I did not see that coming. That came out of nowhere.
That's the origin story. There you go.
That's the origin story for Stark Industries.
And then the last one, where are they now? What do you think Julie did next? Because she's not in the sequels either. She went on to live her life after this. What did she do?
I don't know. I'm going to assume maybe some therapy, because she was apparently willing to date a guy that's probably got a pretty burnt wiener. So there's got to be some, like, psychological necrophilia issues going on in her mind right now. So I'm assuming that bitch is in therapy.
Okay, so she changes her name, moves to North Dakota, and becomes a sheriff. Thank you. I'm here all week.
Yours always ends up going so lighthearted, and mine goes so friggin' dark.
Again, the yin and the yang.
It's such a yin and yang.
All right. So that's going to wrap up our discussion on Darkman from 1990. I want to thank you so much for making me endure this. Not. to
Oh, it
use a
was
dated reference.
Oh, it was a pleasure for me. I mean, if I would have known you hated this so much, I would have looked
But-
forward to it even more.
In fairness, I didn't know I hated it. This was my first time viewing. All right. Well, if anyone out there is interested in watching Darkman, actually all three of the Darkman films, they are currently, at the time of this recording, available on Amazon Prime. So I want to thank you so much for joining me today, sir. I'm glad you liked this movie and liked recording it.
Oh, I had a blast. This was so much fun.
And we want to thank you all out there for listening. And until next time, goodbye.
Hey, listeners, Drive-In Dave here saying we know you have a lot of options when it comes to podcasts. So we want to thank you so much for listening to ours. Please be sure to follow us on all your social media platforms. Join us in the Bad Movie Conversation. We're on Facebook with a Let's Talk Turkeys page, as well as a discussion group where you can chat with other people who also love bad movies. We're also on Instagram at Let's Talk Turkeys, all one word. Plus, we're on Twitter with the handle at Gobble Podcast. That's GOBBLEPODCAST. And of course, you can always email us direct at Let's Talk Turkeys, all one word, at yahoo.com.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.
Big